Welcome into an all-new episode of Panthers on Tap. I'm Curtis Rauen, joined by Bryson, Karbley, and Ricky Raines. Coming to you guys on a Wednesday night. We are 1 week away from Christmas. As you can see, most of us are supporting that with the holiday. But, gentlemen, how we doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't get the memo. I guess I guess I wasn't keen to the Christmas spirit, but I'm doing good. You know, could be doing better coming off a disappointing loss this past weekend that we're going to get into.
Yeah, I'm
Ricky,
good. I was full of cheer and very jolly coming in, and then I see Curtis's shirt with cousin Eddie's RV, and I've got the Sirius Clark shirt on here from Homage. Then I look down at Bryson, and he's got this beautiful Carolina Panthers supporting the Carolina shirt, but I don't see not a damn snowflake or ornament or Santa hat or reindeer antlers, not a single thing. But you know, other than Bryson's ball humbug spirit, I'm feeling pretty good, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Ricky,
man.
what is
sorry.
it? Show your shirt off. Show your shirt off. Let's see that thing up
It says "You Serious Clark," and it's got Chevy Chase doing his Clark Griswold plugging the lights in. It's my favorite movie, not just a Christmas movie, man. That's a terrific movie all time.
Yeah, I got this from the in-laws. It says, Cousin Eddie's RV maintenance, if you can see that. And that says,
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, the shitter's full.
So. Yeah, I love that, man. That's great.
But yeah, this will be our last show before the holidays, so we thought we'd do it up big. I know, Ricky, you got lights going on behind you too. I don't know if you had, I can't remember if you had that last time or not.
I had the color lights, but I got them twinkling tonight. You know, the little lights aren't twinkling, Clark, so I figured I'd get them a little brighter for us all.
All right, well, let's start. What are you guys drinking tonight? Bryson, what do you got?
Yeah, just one tonight for other reasons that I will not say on air, but I had to drink it because of the name. It's called Unexpected Error. Unexpected Error. It's like a spreadsheet, but just the name I felt was very appropriate from this past weekend. It's a hazy IPA from Burial Beer, and I've been on a hazy kick, as you guys know, and it is delicious, very delicious.
Ricky, what do you got?
Yeah, that sounds good. I kept it very Christmassy. I've got from Sycamore Brewery here in Charlotte. This is their barrel-aged Christmas cookie amber ale. So this one's been aged in a bourbon barrel. It's 10.1%, but it tastes like a Christmas cookie, like a snickerdoodle that just has a little drizzle of your finest single barrel on top. It's very nice. And then the classic Great Lakes Christmas Ale. This is just a staple, man, a terrific beer. I believe it's like 6%, maybe 7.5%. It's a ale with spices and honey. Just a nice little Christmas beer. And look, man, I'm just trying to stay in the spirit and not let these Panthers get me down. So I figured I'm going to go like balls to the wall here on Christmas stuff tonight.
Yeah, I'm if you saw by our tweet, the hint was that I was going to be drinking wine tonight. We're going to make damn sure I'm not finishing this bottle. I'll tell you that. I was telling Bryson before we got on here, I thought the wine was sweet. It's not. So we're going to deal with it. It's Christmas at Biltmore. It's a limited release that they do, I think, every holiday. 12.5%. Pretty strong. It's bitter. The Panthers made me bitter this weekend. I thought it was perfect. So, yeah, we're well with it. It's like a red table wine. So, want to welcome the chat. It looks like we got Zach Griffin. He said, I'm back. Cam Newton voice, of course. Appreciate that. Carter, I was doing a Madden Panther franchise, and I cut Eddie Pinheiro, got that fucker off the team. Well, at least someone gets it, Carter. And then C3 Anthony says, what's up? We appreciate you guys all tuning in. Any questions, fire them our way. Also, we do have a super chat. If you're feeling in the giving mood this season, you can send some money our way, and we will do a toast to you, and it will go towards our podcasting funds. So, yeah, we would appreciate it. And we thank everyone who's tuned in, over 100 already. So we appreciate all of you guys. But let's get into the game. You guys alluded to it off the top. It sucked. There's about it. I feel like most of the times we kind of waited to talk about Bryce on this show in episodes in the past, but we're going to start with him because he laid a big old fat egg on Sunday. So let's talk. What did you guys think of his performance versus the Cowboys? And we'll start there.
I'll take it away here. I want to start by talking about the offensive line because I think this was their worst game by far this season. It felt like Bryce was under consistent pressure every time he dropped back to throw the ball. They couldn't do play action. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't pass the ball. The offensive line just had a bad game, and that's okay. It happens. They've been pretty consistent this season, and this isn't the best defensive line they faced. I would say that probably the week prior they faced the best defensive line they faced, and they had a pretty good game. So they came out and came out and fell flat on their face, and then Bryce suffered as a result, and he wasn't good either. Bryce, 2 interceptions, and the one off Adam Thielen. Is that his fault or not? I don't know, but and then 2 fumbles as well. We all had high expectations. I said a lot of crazy things on this podcast the week prior when I was feeling myself a couple beers deep about the Cowboys, and they proved me completely wrong in this game. They ran the ball at will, and defense couldn't stop anything, and Bryce played bad. I mean, there's no way around that, and that doesn't mean he's not the quarterback of the future. It's just a bad game. Quarterbacks across the league, week in and week out, have bad games, and this was a bad game. None of us expected that from Bryce versus this Cowboys defense that isn't very good, but it happened, and I think it started with the offensive line having a bad game, and it kind of just rolled downhill from there. I wouldn't say any aspect of this team played well this past Sunday. From the defense to the offense to the special teams, I wouldn't say any area played well. And that's unfortunate because we all thought this was a very winnable game. And unfortunately, we came away with a blowout loss. So I think Bryce has the ability to bounce back, and I think he will. This upcoming weekend, I think he's still on the right track. He's still on a good trajectory, but this is an obstacle for him. And I'm excited to see how he responds to this challenge of a game where he's had the most turnovers in his career, and the following week against a pretty good Cardinals team. We'll see what happens for Bryce Young moving forward.
Yeah. You brought up the offensive line first when discussing the offensive side of the ball and just the game in general. But I want to point to the coaching for a second too, because I thought that this was a pretty rough game for Dave Canales and for Ejiro Evero and for, I guess, Brad Idzik. Who knows what he does? But let's just talk about the head coach for a second, because early on in the season, in Bryce's first 2 starts, right, it was a matter of I'm not giving him answers. I'm not making things easy on him. We have talked about this now for weeks on this show. I mean, probably since week 4, week 5, even when Andy Dalton was playing, that after the first 15 or however many he is scripting at the beginning of a game, he falls off a ledge a lot in these games where if he's not entirely in rhythm, it is discombobulated to say the least. And I thought what he did this Sunday was kind of reminiscent of what he's done other times, where you let the other team dictate what you're willing to do. And that's so backwards for me from the mentality that we should be having with the talent that we have on this team. And when I say talent, I mean the offensive line, and I specifically mean the interior offensive line. And the one thing that left tackle does relatively well, which is grading the ground and road blocking, right? That's what he does. And I think that we got away from that way too early. I don't really care too much about what the defense was doing, because in this game, it wasn't the same. Look, in Tampa, I know, or in the Tampa Bay game, I know we talked a lot about like the stacked boxes, the 8-man front. That wasn't necessarily the case against Dallas. But even if it is at some point, if a team is going to take away the one thing that they know you do well, at some point you have to be able to say, but I'm still going to do it anyways. And I'm just going to be tougher. I'm going to be more physical. And I'm going to be better than you. So that was where I had my first problem. Second, though, Bryce Young did not have a good game. I don't know like what the conversation is even there, right? You can't turn the ball over 4 times. You can't do it. Like we cannot have that. And it doesn't matter how good your defense is. It doesn't matter how good your skill position players are. You can't be responsible for turning the ball over 4 times. And some of it was decision making that led to the turnovers. The interception that he threw that was tipped and caught. He had JT Sanders, probably was even the correct read. If you go through like the progressions and you look at the top of the screen, that you kind of need to know that almost pre-snap, right? That's where you're going based off of the coverage look and where you should be going because you know the routes. The other thing with Bryce, I love what I saw from him the 5 games prior and in the progression. It wasn't necessarily all of what I saw during those 5 games, but the progression and the development within that 5-game stretch. First time I've seen that from Bryce Young, to be honest, was stacking games. I have a little bit of a worry in my gut, if you want me to be completely honest, that we can't always regress to this point when you have a bad game. There has to be some sort of, he had an off day, but didn't completely kill his team with the off day. And some of this stuff was team killing, in my opinion. I believe in Bryce. I like Bryce. He has the talent to be a really good quarterback, I think. But there are still mental obstacles and there are still deficiencies. I don't know if he needs to get physically stronger for the fumbling and stuff like that. He's been hit so many times and he hasn't fumbled at the rate that he was on Sunday. So I refuse to believe that it's simply a matter of, hey, he's got weak hands. I don't think that that's it. But there's something going on with the ball security that you can't have. And if we're going to keep Bryce Young and go into next season with him as a starter, which I think we'll talk a little bit about that and if that should be what's going on or whatnot. But I was concerned a little bit with this game, and you can say that that's a little bit reactionary. But, man, we've had a rough stretch here with this quarterback, and I just want to see him play well more than not.
Yeah, it was a brutal game, to say the least, for Bryce Young. Disappointing from my end because of how well he's played over the past few weeks. And I feel like we kind of got the 2023 Bryce game, or the first 2 games of the season Bryce of this game, because he looked a lot like those times where once he had one turnover, it just tailspin from there. And that's kind of the feeling I got in this game, because, in weeks past when he threw a pick, he kind of bounced back, makes a touchdown there after the fact. And you didn't really see that from him besides the Cooper Rush fumble that honestly really kept them in this game. Otherwise, this game really could have gotten out of hand. So, and then the blown coverage, obviously, to Coker. But Bryce Young has issues last year with fumbling. I looked it up. I think he had 11 last year, and he lost more than half of them. So, this has been an issue in the past, and now it's kind of resurfaced. So that concerns me a little bit, and maybe you can go back to what he, did some last year when he had a couple of games where he had two or more fumbles in a game. And I feel like it kind of spirals when that happens. So hopefully he can get back into that in this next game. And it needs to be a bounce back. He can't come out and lay another egg here, or I get it. I know he's done a lot, but he can't put together back-to-back shitty outings. He can't afford that. This staff, I don't think, is still 100% sold on him, and he hasn't shown enough. Right now, 5 games isn't enough for this coaching staff. So he needs a bounce back game, and it concerns me when he gets into this, downward spiral in a game like that, where the last 4 games he's bounced back. We go into this one versus, like Ricky said, a Cowboys team. Everyone wants to say, yeah, they've won the last couple games, but they're a really bad team. They've lost a lot, and they're not very good, and teams beat the hell out of them. And all of a sudden, Cooper Rush is looking like a stellar quarterback, and that's a problem. So, and that's not on Bryce for the Cooper Rush thing, but the Panthers have to play perfect almost to be in games the way it is. You cannot have your quarterback having 4 turnovers. And I get it. The offensive line he was getting pressured, but the pick was a really bad throw. The fumbles were bad. It's all about ball security, and he should know this by now, that he can let the ball go, because he had some really brilliant plays in this game, but they were clouded by his shittiness really in this game with those. It sucked, man. It really did, because I think he took a pretty big step back from where he was the last 4 games.
And I think that he's sorry, Bryson.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I think that he's got the mental toughness. Like that's the thing, man, that I'm really struggling with Bryson, and I would like to know what you think about this too. I can't tell, man. Like he seems extremely tough mentally at times, and then other times he seems to have a little bit of a fragility to him where things can spiral. Curtis, you brought it up about the fumbles and stuff like that. It's not even necessarily like getting rattled. It's just for some reason it keeps happening once it happens one time. And like I didn't see him. The confidence of the entire team was lacking. That was apparent. But I did see Bryce, like, he wanted to still take shots. He wanted to still try to make throws. I thought that the game plan, though, getting away from the quick pass game, I thought that hurt so much. Getting away from the complementary run game hurt so much for the rhythm and the flow of this offense, which really, man, when you think of how this offense has been good and how Bryce Young has been good, it's kind of been in rhythm. Even on these off-script plays, it's been part of what they've been doing. And this thing on Sunday just seemed like a completely different football team. But I have a real significant problem when we keep getting told that we have to be patient with everybody involved. This isn't singling out Bryce Young, right? But everyone involved, we're in week 16 coming up. Like, you got to be able to evaluate a team within a year's time to know what you have. And honest to God, guys, I'm being serious. I'm not sure what we have at any position right now outside of maybe running back, cornerback, and Derek Brown, who's injured. I like, that's it, man. And interior offensive line, our guards. I don't know what this team is. I don't know what the coaches are. And I don't know that I want to sit here for another year and be told that we have to wait and watch, you know?
No, yeah. I mean, that's fair. That's fair. I think in this game in particular, I try to look at the totality of the circumstances, what happened in this game. The one interception off Adam Thielen's hands, I don't attribute that as a Bryce Young fault on that interception. The other one was Bryce's fault. The 2 fumbles, obviously that's on Bryce for losing the ball, but the offensive line struggling, being under consistent pressure. Look, this team is not good. His best weapon is a 34-year-old wide receiver and Xavier Legette with a bum wrist. Like, when the coaching staff has a bad game, the offensive line has a bad game, and your wide receivers are just not good, probably bottom 5 group in the NFL. Like, I don't know what else to expect from Bryce in this situation at this point. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but he wasn't in a position to succeed versus Dallas with everything else happening around him. If he would have, that would have been, spectacular, and I would have loved it. But where he's at in his career right now, I don't think, if we play that game again and the offensive line still has issues, I think the same thing happens again. Like, when the coaching staff is struggling to make adjustments and call correct plays, and the run game's not happening, there's no play action because they're not threatened by Chuba because he's getting stopped. That's not common this season, but they were containing him. And I think, with all that stuff combined, it just compiled to, Bryce struggling in that game. And it's unfortunate, but, I still have hope that, he's a good quarterback. We saw 5 weeks of it, of progress. And I think just everything kind of fell into place for this to be a bad game for the Carolina Panthers from the top to Bryce. And it's unfortunate, but, I like to look at it, the big picture in this game, and that, everybody else around Bryce was terrible. So for him not to play terrible would have taken a miracle, I think. And unfortunately, that didn't happen.
I want to bring up something that I talked about last week quickly. Sorry. I'm having a lag issue tonight, so if I'm cutting in on you guys, I apologize. And for everyone listening, that's just my shitty internet. But I wanted to bring up something that I talked about last week. You guys disregarded it. That's fine. But I still get this gut feeling that Bryce Young is looking Adam Thielen's way a little bit too much. And Bryson, you mentioned the pick. It hit Thielen in the hands, but on that play, I think it was either JT Sanders or Tremble was wide open on the 3rd down, and Bryce went to a covered Adam Thielen. A bang play, and here we go with an interception. And that And I don't know, I've just gotten this sense these last 2 weeks where Bryce is going back to his old way where it's like Adam Thielen's the only outlet. And I get it. And that was one of the only plays I'm trying to think of if there was any other ones where he threw to a couple Adam Thielen, but that's slowly creeping in the back of my mind like a freaking nightmare from last year, because I know that happened a lot, and I'm going to keep paying attention to it because it concerns me a little bit. But that play just came to mind when you mentioned it with the pick. Could Thielen maybe have caught that one? Maybe, but so bang, bang. I think he missed the guy there. And that begs another question. We don't have to talk about this now because I think we should talk about Canales too, because Ricky, you brought it up. But tight ends have been non-existent lately. Again, we become to like JT Sanders. Where the hell has he been? He hasn't made any plays. Like Tremble's getting a lot more playing time, but there's still this non-existence from this tight end room. And when Bryce Young was kind of starting to roll, I mean, he was spreading it out to everyone. This was pre-even Thielen coming back. He was throwing the ball to he was at, I think like 5-6 guys had receptions. And I feel like we're kind of getting away right now. That's just the way I have been perceiving it. But I mean, that's a whole nother question. Like, the tight ends are non-existent again. But let's talk about Canales while Ricky had mentioned it, because Bryce, I wanted to get your take on that. You kind of talked about it briefly there, but what have you thought about specifically? I tweeted this out, getting away from the run game. Everyone wants to throw out. They're down 17. It's 24-7. Why are they going to run the ball? But people forget early in that game, they got away from the run pretty damn early. I mean, Chuba Hubbard to start going out into the third quarter only had 8 carries. 8 carries for 1,000 yards. Like, what are we doing here? I don't care how bad the score is. Sometimes I feel like you almost got to force your will and force your hand onto teams. And I'm not saying that right, but you need impose your will on teams. Sometimes even when you are down, because I think that can spark other things, because all was doing towards the end was just pinning their ears back like every team did last year against Carolina, which created way more issues for the offense. So, and Canales was asked about it. I think Person or Newton maybe asked him, like, do you feel like you're getting away from the run too early? And Canales was like, no, I made a decision. I think we were out of this game at that point, and I don't regret it. Which still concerns me because he's still doubling down on his decision making, which is kind of
almost worse.
Frustrating. Yeah. So Bryson, anyway, what are your thoughts on Canales and this stubborn with the run that he's preached in the offseason, and he's not stubborn with the run?
Yeah, I think there's an old saying that goes, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I think Canales has talked a big game about being stubborn with the run, but I think maybe 1 game or 2 games this season, he's actually been stubborn with the run out of 15. So I think it's time for us to believe what we're seeing, and that this is not a coach that's going to be stubborn with the run. This is a coach that likes to pass the ball. And, I would say a lot of coaches in the NFL like to pass the ball. There's not many that do like to be stubborn with the run, but when you're a team that's struggling and a quarterback that's still trying to figure shit out, like, you have to put him in situations to succeed. And that's play action. That's running the ball. That's, making a defense be honest. And Canales just hasn't done that. And I at this point, I don't believe that he will. I just don't. I mean, he's got the offensive line to do it. He's got the running back to do it. There's no excuse not to. And when you're down 17, like, you're not out of the game. You can run the ball. Like, I don't buy that excuse. Like, down 2 touchdowns, down a touchdown, down 3 touchdowns. Like, you can still run the ball. Like, it's okay. I promise. Like, you can run the ball. And Canales has just shown that he's not willing to do that or doesn't want to do it. And unfortunately, sometimes Bryce pays for that, or the team in general, like, just continuing to go 3 and out or get a first down, then punt. And, when you're trying to get it all back in one play, which I feel like he has that mentality sometimes, Canales does, it really puts you in an even bigger hole than running the ball and taking a couple extra minutes off the clock and getting a touchdown. Like, you have to weigh those options, and Canales isn't doing that right now. So I think we need to believe what we're seeing on the field, and he's just not that coach.
And I want to get to Zach's super chat here, but before we do that, I want to give a quick response to what Bryce is talking about too, because he brings up some really good points. Not only were you not out of the game, but we're talking about a 3-10 football team that was damn near mathematically eliminated before this game. But after the game, we were mathematically eliminated. But we knew we weren't making the postseason. That ship sailed a couple weeks ago, right? You're not necessarily playing to make sure that you can win that game. Now, yeah, of course you are, man. I am a big proponent of always trying to win the football game. That's not what I'm trying to insinuate. What I'm saying, though, is that there are other things at play. And running the football, not only does it literally take the ball out of Bryce's hands for a second, like give him a breather, man, give him a little bit of a mental reset, let him see something else work, let the offensive line simplify what they're doing, let them not worry about Micah Parsons, let them just do what they are built to do. Give him that break. I think of it, man, like, look, if we're going to do this analogy thing on a Christmas episode, I think of it as like getting your car stuck in the snow, right? And your tire is just spinning. You can't get out of it. If you keep on hammering the gas, doing the same thing over and over, trying to get your car out, it's not going to work. If you get out and you dig underneath it, it might take a little bit more time and you might be late getting to wherever you're getting to, but at least you're going to move again. Your car won't just be stuck and landlocked, sitting there, spinning the damn tires. And that's what it seemed like they were doing. I don't really care what the excuse is. It was 10-7 at the half. You weren't out of that game. You were out of your game plan. You were out of your comfort zone. You were out of your coaching mind for a little bit, if you want my honest to God opinion. You got away from things at a very early juncture, and I think it's because you got frazzled. And that's okay, man. That's a human thing. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say you got to be perfect as a football coach, but you do need to have the self-awareness, and it's something that I gave him credit for the past couple of weeks. The self-awareness of knowing where your deficiencies are and know when you're having a hard time, taking that step back if you're overwhelmed. I don't think he did that at all. I think that he panicked, and I think that he kept pressing the issue when all he had to do was take a step back from pressing and let things happen organically, even if it took longer, even if you lost the game. Guess what, man? You lost the game anyways. At least try to rebuild the confidence within a game. I don't want to always feel like that if we get punched in the mouth in a football game, that it's going to take until next week before we have a counterpunch. I don't want to feel that way, because you're not going to win football games like that. In the NFL, you are going to get hit in the face a lot of times, dude. Everybody in this league is good. Well, maybe not the Raiders, maybe not even the Jaguars, and definitely not the Panthers, but everybody else in the NFL, they are good football teams, and they're going to give you their best shot every single week. You have to be able to take a punch and throw one back in the same fight. You can't always look at your next opponent.
And the thing too is Dallas kept mistakes on their own. So it was like Dallas was keeping you in the game. So even if you were to run the ball, I mean, the penalties, I mean, they had 16 penalties Dallas did. And so like you were always still in it. I don't buy this. And fans always, Dan, the minute you say they need to be stubborn with the run, well, they're down 17. How do you blame them? No. I've seen teams come back running the ball. I've seen it happen. Don't give me that bullshit. Like I think he has made some very crucial rookie head coaching mistakes in his time here, where he's, like Ricky said, it's almost like he panics and thinks they're way out of it, and he has to throw the whole playbook out the window and throw 50 times. And I don't think that's the answer. Let's get to air. Yes, thank you, Zachary Hernandez, $20. We do appreciate it. What's up, Ellis? Should the Panthers trade for Garrett Wilson this offseason? I found a beer. We're going to have to write this one down. I found a beer called I Heart the Holidays, DIPA, by Levante Brewing Company. I don't know. Is that in North Carolina? Does anyone know?
No, I'm not sure if Levante's in North Carolina. I don't think that it is, but I have had the I Heart the Holidays. Good beer. Great beer, Zach.
Happy holidays, and Christmas Vacation is the best Christmas movie, hands down. So let's cheers to that first. Appreciate it.
Man. Thank you.
We will get into the Garrett Wilson question, but just quickly, Ricky, I know where your head is with this, but Christmas Vacation, you think that's the best Christmas movie, hands down?
Yeah, not even close, man. I think that there's some really great stuff out there, but Christmas Vacation just has everything you look for. The shopping mall scene alone, where he goes in and, oh, 'tis the season to be merry. Well, that's my name. No shit. just that sequence alone, give me to it on repeat, man. It is the absolute best.
Bryson, favorite Christmas movie? What's the best one?
I gotta disagree, man. I gotta disagree. I love Elf, man. Elf is my favorite Christmas movie. I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not, but I love Will Ferrell, and that movie. I grew up watching it like multiple times on Christmas. So that's my favorite one, man. Eating the spaghetti with the syrup and the Skittles or M&Ms, whatever he was eating on the spaghetti, and jumping on the beds in Macy's. I love that movie.
I'm not mad at that either. I do like Elf. That's fun, man. My kid likes it too. So yeah, double thumbs up for me there too.
I'm probably an outlier because my family literally watched this on repeat on Christmas Eve, the 24-hour special on TBS, if you know what I'm talking about. It's a Christmas story. That was my family's go-to movie. So that for me, I can recite every single damn line in that one. I do love Christmas Vacation too. It's probably a close second, I would say. I really love all the way. We had that at VHS. People remember VHS. We had that on VHS at home. I watched that all the damn time too. There's so many good ones, but those are a couple. But let's get to the question about the Panthers here. Should the Panthers trade for Garrett Wilson? This has come up time and time again on Twitter. Where are you guys with the Jets receiver? Do you think they can make this happen? What would the compensation be? That sort of thing. Ricky, why don't you start?
I'm not going to say no, they shouldn't trade for Garrett Wilson, because Garrett Wilson is a very good wide receiver and a young wide receiver. You're going to have to sign him to an extension. He's going to cost a lot of money. He's also going to cost some serious draft capital to acquire him. My guess is that it would take either multiple firsts or a second bare minimum this season and a first next season, and possibly still some future considerations, or a player, if you will. I don't know, man. It's a very steep price, but I also am very sick of seeing the force feeding to Adam Thielen. I am very sick of saying, and this is no shot to Jalen Coker because he played outstanding this week and he's been better. He's been our best receiver this year outside of Adam Thielen. So this is in no way disrespecting Jalen Coker, but he's not Garrett Wilson, at least not right now. And Garrett Wilson provides something that we would be aiming for and shooting for again in the draft at times. If it's not this season, it's next. We're going to have to find a true number one, and a dynamic number one, a guy that can take over and be a threat to the defense at all times. And I'm not sure that there is a cost that's too high to get that. You look at what Tyreek Hill did for the Dolphins when they traded for him. They traded a king's ransom, turned that team into a pretty good team for a little while. They built an offense around it. Now they're struggling now, right? But you look at what Joe Burrow had happen when he got Jamar Chase. Now, granted, he had T. Higgins, but that Jamar Chase was a different ball game once he got him into the building. And it's I just have a really hard time, man, seeing all these other quarterbacks have a great, fun time with their number one, especially when we don't have the Josh Allen type of physical quarterback, or the Pat Mahomes or the Lamar Jackson that has incredible athletic gifts that can overcompensate for things. I think that we need a one.
Before Bryson jumps in, to Ricky's point, has there ever been a team that has traded for a wide receiver and won the big one? Has that ever happened in like the last 10 years? And chat, maybe you guys can search us while we're talking about this question.
I would say Randy Moss probably for the Patriots might have been the last one, right?
And that was more than a decade ago, right?
Yeah, probably. More than a decade, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And Randy Moss is elite talent. So yeah, just something to ponder. But Bryson, Garrett Wilson, you want him? How much you think you'd take?
Yeah, I mean, I would love Garrett Wilson on the Carolina Panthers. I don't think it's something super realistic for this Carolina Panthers team, but if you had to trade a first and a couple other picks or whatever the case may be, getting a true number one like Garrett Wilson, I think is something obviously I would like for Bryce Young to have. And he's a supreme talent, young guy like Ricky mentioned, and I would sign him to the big contract extension because of that. So, yeah, I mean, if it's attainable and Carolina's seriously looking into it, I'm all aboard the train. But I don't really think so because of the status that the team's at and so many holes and trading that draft capital away. I just don't think that the Carolina Panthers are really seriously considering something like that.
I think any Panthers fan would want Garrett Wilson on this team. The question is, would he be here? And that's, I think, the biggest one laying over all of our heads. Like, I want a guy who wants to be here, and I know you can try to go and land the big fish. Panthers have so many damn holes to fill. I don't see this happening. I would bet, if I'm a bet man, I put $100 this doesn't happen. Like, I don't see this whatsoever. Do they go out and get a free agent wide receiver? I think that's a higher likelihood. A guy like T. Higgins, which even that I think could be a reach. Chris Godwin, a guy who's familiar with Canales' system a little bit, possibly. But then you also got to look. Godwin for like 8 weeks last year went missing in Canales' system. So, like, does he really want to be in that system?
Well,
so, I mean, that's a whole nother thing.
Didn't Cincinnati say, didn't Joe Burrow like come out and say essentially to like, hey, look, I'm going to do whatever it takes to try to keep T. Higgins here? Like, if you've got Joe Burrow saying that about you and wanting to keep you there, and look, he's going to have to actually like do it, right? He's going to have to prove that he's willing to do that to keep him. But if you got Joe Burrow saying that and you have Jamar Chase on the other side, wouldn't you be more inclined to stay, take the money that you're going to get from Cincinnati, have that chance of winning, than take a chance of coming to Charlotte and playing with a team that has notoriously been a dumpster fire for almost a decade now? Like,
but he might want to be the featured guy. I mean,
he might want to. He might, man. He might. And if that's the case, then yeah, we can absolutely offer that to him, right? I think that you both bring up a good point, though, about the whole thing. Is this a place where the Panthers are currently to make this move and to give up the capital and the assets that it would take to do that? I think that what Dan Morgan has shown is that he's willing to make moves, but he's not necessarily making moves that are blowing up a plan. And I think that giving up that much could essentially blow up a building plan. And so I'm not sure that I can envision Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis. And remember, Brant Tillis was on the other end of that Tyreek Hill trade. He's the one that got rid of the superstar wide receiver to acquire draft capital and go young to build around Pat Mahomes. Now, obviously, we're not saying that Bryce Young is Pat Mahomes, but Tillis has an idea of how he could build a team, and it didn't seem like he was looking at a star receiver as the biggest piece.
To be fair, though, in, I guess, defense of Tyreek Hill, ever since they got rid of Tyreek Hill, the Chiefs have been trying to find the next
100%.
Hill, and they still couldn't do that with Xavier
100%.
Worthy, even though he was the fastest guy on the planet. So, like, I feel like there is some sort of regret to that as well on the Chiefs end. I get it. They've won several Super Bowls after, so maybe they don't care. But, like, I feel like that's – anyway, this ain't a Chiefs show. But it's an interesting point, Zach. We appreciate the dollars, and it's it's something I'm sure we'll ponder again in the offseason, because we are, salivating for talent here. I mean, there's holes on all over this roster, and that's why I can't see them trading for someone, because they just have way too many holes to fill at this point. But let's talk more about this a little bit. I know we touched on the offense a little bit. You guys can get into more of that if you want. Let's kind of transition to the defense here, if you guys are cool with that. And I think the biggest takeaway from this game, from my perspective, is I think it might have even been back-to-back, or it was in the same drive where Ejiro Evero decided to put Jordan Fuller on the best wide receiver on the field in CeeDee Lamb, and he got cooked. And it was not even close. And it resulted in a score. So where are you guys at with both that decision-making by Evero, also this safety room? Because they have not been good. And I feel like a lot of us in summer were talking about how this safety room was going to be pretty decent and a strong suit of this defense. And up to this point, at least for me, that has not been the case at all. So where are you guys at with the divisions?
Yeah, look, I think a couple of weeks ago, all of us were on the show saying, look, this is a defensive coordinator that was really good last season, and we don't think he just all of a sudden forgot how to coach the defense. I think he might have. I think there's a chance he forgot because, we're seeing the same mistakes week in and week out. J.C. Horn saying he wants to shadow the number one wide receiver, but he's playing in the system, and you're putting Jordan Fuller on CeeDee Lamb, who is just abusing him in that one drive that sticks out in my mind. And this Cowboys offense was having whatever they wanted against this defense. Rico Dowdle had a career day running the ball. Cooper Rush looked like a Pro Bowl quarterback. We were getting no pressure whatsoever. There wasn't anything the defense was doing good. And when you have a weapon like J.C. Horn, you have to put him in a position to make a difference. And when a team knows he's not going to shade the other receiver, not going to shadow him, like they're just going to move the receiver and get him away and go against Mike Jackson or Jordan Fuller or Xavier Woods and take advantage because they're not on the same level at all, a talent. So I think Ejiro Evero is losing a lot of fans in Carolina, and his seat is getting warmer and warmer by the week when this defense struggles week in and week out. I know since like week 10, I think they're like 5th in the league with sacks. So, I mean, that's impressive. Wanham coming back has definitely helped, but, this is something that has continued under Evero's scheme this season, at least, where we're talking about a defense that just cannot get stops. And when you have an offense that, in this game in particular, was struggling to find its footing, that's where the hole gets created. Like the Cowboys offense with a backup quarterback with Rico Dowdle, who, in my mind is not a top 15 running back, just completely abusing everyone on that defense and scoring at will. So it was frustrating to see the defense is in a bad spot. And God bless them this week versus Kyler Murray, who's probably going to make him look stupid. So yeah, I'm frustrated. I think Evero, if they decide to move on from him after the season, I'm not going to be heartbroken. I think he's a good coach still. I just think he has to have the proper the proper people in his system, and he just doesn't have that here right now. And he's trying to fit like a square peg in a round hole, and the talent level just isn't there on the defense. And I think if the proper talent is, then possibly the system could be pretty good. I think we've seen glimpses of that, but in Carolina, it's just not working. And it's okay to move on. It's okay to look elsewhere. And I think that's probably going to happen more than likely for Carolina after the season.
Before Ricky jumps in,
yeah.
I tried to warn you about Dowdle. I really did last week. I
Yeah,
tried to warn you, but Ricky, go ahead.
Well, to that point though, can I commend Bryson for not having some Dave Canales in him there, because he didn't back down. He knew he was wrong about Rico Dowdle. He got shown he was wrong last week, or at least for 1 week, but he stuck to his guns here. He was stubborn with the hate, and I could appreciate that, man. Don't let them dictate what you do, Bryson. You stick to it, man. It don't matter if he runs over you. You stick with that hate, brother. I love it. Keep that hate in your heart, man. It's the holidays. If it ain't about hate, it ain't about the holidays, all right? All right, so look, here's the thing, man, because Dave Canales spoke on this, right, in his presser about why JC wasn't shadowing. And he basically, in less terms, but in the way that I interpreted his answer, said that this defense does not have the talent and the personnel that would allow Evero to have JC move out of his alignment, out of his position and his responsibilities to move into the slot or to follow across the line of scrimmage, to follow across the, the formation, because of all the adjustments and the pieces that would happen from that adjustment, that they don't have the pieces to do it. And essentially what they're saying is that Cho Smith-Wade, he's not going to go out on the outside. We don't feel comfortable about that. They basically are admitting that Dane Jackson has been you want to talk about laying an egg. Like that's been a bad signing. That just has not worked out at all. Mike Jackson, they don't want to move him out of off coverage. They don't really want him to be impressed. They don't really want him to be manning that like a cloud zone. They don't want that. They want him playing that cover 3. They want him playing off. I think that I've got multiple problems with that. Yes, we know that they allocated a lot of resources to the offense this season and that the defense would suffer. We also were told, and can connect dots, follow the tea leaves, whatever you want to say, follow the gingerbread crumbs, if you will, to find that they are bringing in intentional pieces that should have familiarity and fit the exact mold of what Evero at least wants to do. So to go from where we were, and I'm not saying that we were a stellar defense. We benefited from a lot of skewed statistics last season, in my opinion, on the perception of Evero's defense. But to go from where we were to where we are, which is a huge downgrade again in key areas, EPA and things like that. We can get into the statistics of it, but we have become a laughing stock of a defense, and there are so many ways to attack this defense, and it's kind of like pick and choose what you feel like doing, right? I have a real problem when if you have an elite talent like JC Horn, if you don't want to do it all game because you don't want to mess up your scheme and your coverages all game, I understand that. But when we're talking about key critical downs, I think that it's silly to say we would rather take our chance with Jordan Fuller than to take our chance with JC being out of his alignment and then possibly getting beat by Turpin or possibly getting beat by Jalen Tolbert or possibly getting beat by Jake Ferguson. I'm sick and tired of CeeDee Lamb beating Jordan Fuller. I'm sick and tired of CeeDee Lamb beating Xavier Woods while JC Horn is over there covering the flat on Jake Ferguson. That's what we're more concerned about, our best corner being able to do so that we don't mess up the scheme on third downs on red zone situations. I don't understand it. I don't think that Evero is a bad coach, but my opinion on him has changed this year. I think that he's very rigid. I think that he's very specific. And until he values positions that I don't think he does, such as nose tackle and safety, obviously, until he values those positions, I don't see his scheme working. Not here. And I think it would take way too long for us to build the defense to work for him. And I'm not really interested in giving him 4 years so that we can find out if he's a good coach. I think that's an unnecessary thing. I think you go to another coach who is willing to change his scheme and be adaptive, and you let him work with the pieces he has and bring in some chess pieces that he needs.
I struggle with this. I really do. This is the one I've always liked Evero. If you've listened to our show, he was one of my guys. And I've defended him all season long. I really have. I felt like he didn't have a lot of talent to work with on this team. So it's like a scale for me. I struggle with that, but then it also really pisses me off that your best corner isn't covering their best wide receiver, and I can't comprehend that. I can't get over that, and that drives me nuts when, like Ricky said, I mean, you literally have JC Horn covering a tight end on the flat or a wide receiver 3 for another team. And it drives me bonkers that they do it. And Canales, I'm so glad. I don't know. Maybe it was Mike K. Whatever beat reporter asked that. I appreciate them because I remember we talked about it a couple of weeks ago on this show. I think I brought it up. I said, "Why isn't JC?" I think I asked you, Ricky. We were talking about it of why JC wasn't shadowing the best player on the other team.
And I think that my answer was pretty close to what Canales said, right? That it was going to change everything up, and that if you move him, then 3 or 4 different pieces have to move, and that he didn't want to do it. Yep.
So that's the biggest thing for me. I do think Evero is a good DC. I do, and I think they lost a shit ton of players this season defensively, and they didn't come in with a lot, so that has hindered him. But my patience is waning thin with his ass. It really is, because they're like 30-31 in almost every category. It's pretty bad. It's been brutal. I don't know if it's another season of him to see if he can turn it around. I don't know if 3-4 is the answer for this team. Do they go back to a 4-3? And that's another question. I was curious where you guys stand on that of the 4-3 versus the 3-4. Carolina has traditionally been a 4-3 team, especially in the Ron Rivera days. But yeah, it's just this team. It's so infuriating to watch every week. What the other team's gonna do, they're gonna run it down their throat. Like it's so obvious, and like. I don't mean to tease our bets, but someone in here is going to be betting on one of the backs that's playing Carolina this weekend. Like you'd be dumb not to. I mean, really, literally, You look at any prop bet right now, all the guys online, every one of them is talking about that running back over in Arizona this weekend. So
can we look at that question,
frustrating
Curtis,
as all hell.
That's up there from Tony Thompson? Can we look at that? Because I think that this is something that needs to be pointed out too. He says, do you think that Canales is confident enough to not only fire Ejiro, but also hire a DC he thinks will be better for the team? the most important part of that is that it wouldn't be Canales doing that, right? That's not his decision. Like, he's going to have input, but Dan Morgan is the general manager for this football team. He's going to make coaching personnel decisions. And if he is looking at this team, and also Dan Morgan, his background is as a personnel evaluator, right? And really an NFL personnel evaluator. He wasn't even like a college guy. So if he's looking at this team and free agents that are available, and he says, I could build this defense up to a different scheme, easy. Like, if Evero doesn't value a nose tackle, for the question that you asked about 3-4 or 4-3, until he values nose tackle, I don't want to see this 3-4 base in Carolina. I just don't. I have zero interest in seeing Shy Tuttle being picked up and moved and being displaced at the nose tackle alignment. That is what I saw numerous times on Sunday against Dallas. I mean, numerous times where Dallas either double team Shy or even single block just moved him out of the way, man. Like, you can't do it. That's never going to work for us. We don't have the linebackers behind him anyways right now. We don't have the discipline on angles and tackling. Like, it's a mess, man. Some of the procedural stuff that we're seeing on defense, it is a mess. Bryson, I don't know what you think about this, but do you really think that there is a way that Canales is going to be the one that tries to save Evero, or do you think that's something that would be over his head?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ricky. I think it's out of his hands, but I think for all of Canales' deficiencies, I don't think confidence is one. I think he's a pretty confident dude in his decisions that he makes, whether they're wrong or right. I think going into the press conference and defending his decisions kind of lends to that a little bit. But I do think there are a lot of good potential defensive coordinators that are going to be available. You talk about Matt Eberflus from Chicago, who had that defense playing really well. Robert Saleh was mentioned in the chat. Like, there are options out there. And I think it's going to be Dan Morgan's decision. And I don't care which way, what system they play in. It just needs to fucking work. And it's not been working. So if it means bringing in a nose tackle to make this 3-4 work, like, do it. Make it happen. If it means switching to a 4-3 and getting the personnel for that, make that happen. Like, do something to make a defense at least competent and give your team a chance in these situations where you're playing against an offense with a backup quarterback and a top 30 running back in Rico Dowdle. I'm going to continue to bump him down every time I talk about him. I think your defense has just been disappointing, and there's no way around that. And I think I agree with you, Curtis. Ejiro Evero is a good coach. I really do believe that. I think he's a very smart guy, and if he has the proper players in place on defense, I think he has the scheme to be a really good defense. But I also agree with Ricky when he says he's very rigid and he's not going away from his scheme. It doesn't matter if he has the right players or not. He's going to try to make it work. And unfortunately, that's what's led us to this game this past weekend. You need to put J.C. Horn on CeeDee Lamb. There's no excuse for that. When he's abusing Jordan Fuller, when he's abusing Xavier Woods, you're worried about what could happen and not worried about what is happening. And put J.C. Horn on CD and see what happens, because the other way isn't working either. So, like what's the risk, right? It's frustrating. And I think after this season, I think the Panthers are likely to go a different direction on that defense.
Before we answer this question, or I'll ask this to Ricky, and you can, yes or no, short answer, whatever you want. Again, I struggle with Evero because I do think he's a hell of a coach. I really do, and I see the league. Like, look at the teams that wanted him as their DC this past season and temper block them. Like, this guy, people value him around the league. I think it's a personnel issue as much as we want to blame him as well. Like, you look at this roster, what DC is really getting this roster to play at a high level when they really didn't add a lot on defense. They added an aging edge rusher, a guy who didn't make it to the season until week 10. You lost your defensive player in Derek Brown. You lost a pretty big leader in Shaq Thompson, like week 2. You had your second starting corner opposite J.C. Horn come in a week before the season started. You had a guy who was supposed to be your number 2 in Dane Jackson get hurt and not really play up to the level and rookie is playing over him right now. Like this defense is just, there is so many freaking holes. And that's like in a couple of weeks, what are we going to be talking about during the draft? Probably a defensive guy, because that's how shitty this defense. Like there's not a lot of talent on this defense. There's a couple that can be cornerstones, but one of those guys has been out since week 1. So I do think, and that's where I come to Evero's defense, because I don't know what coach would come in here and make this defense play any better than it is right now. Because it's, I mean, there's not a lot of guys that be playing on other teams.
No, I don't
really
know that there is. I don't know that there's another coach that could just come in and work magic, right? Like that's a good point. It's a fair point. I would pose this question to you, Curtis. What other defensive coordinator could have retained a talent like Frankie Louvu, who only wanted to go somewhere else because of the defensive scheme and the rigidness and the unwillingness to adapt to his personnel, and maybe kept him and had a weapon there that we could desperately use right now, a player like him. The free agents that we talk about bringing in, I just have a hard time believing that this wasn't some sort of consultation with Ejiro about, hey, how does this guy fit? Hey, how do you like this guy? Hey, is this guy one of your preferences? Or, hey, can you give us a list of the guys out of these free agents and prioritize it? Show us what you like. Let us work on the business side of this, because I think that A'Shawn Robinson has history with him. Jordan Fuller has history with him. Dane Jackson, I think, is more of a Dan Morgan guy, but he played the style of defense, the zone off coverage, that I think Ejiro thinks he can work with. DJ Wanham being more of an edge setter, Jadeveon Clowney being more of an edge setter, the DJ Johnson pick being more of an edge setter than a pass rusher. I mean, all of these things are legitimate seeming Ejiro Evero moves. And the Shy Tuttle at nose tackle, Evero himself is the one that came out and said that they don't value a nose tackle in that scheme as much. I mean, that's what they said. And that is a wild thing to say when your nose tackle is being picked up like a new habit and being run away with. Like, I just think that I do agree with you that Evero is well respected and well thought of in league circles, and you can't dismiss that. He seems like a leader, first of all. Like, guys respond to him, they believe in him. So I don't want to attack this dude's character. He does 100%, man. And like, I could easily see him being, honestly, a better head coach than maybe he is as a coordinator. I think that maybe as a big picture guy, I could even see him having better traction. But if you ask me what kind of defensive coordinator could possibly do better, an adaptive one. I don't want to play revisionism here, but Mike Macdonald, if he were your head coach and your defensive coordinator, I think that Mike Macdonald could get a little bit more juice. And I think that you probably would have saw different people prioritize being signed. And I think that you probably would have saw a little bit more pound in the table for, hey, look, you could do what you want to with trying to get, the offense built up around here, but you're not going to strip me naked. Like, you're not going to sit there and put my bare ass out on Main Street and just to have me criticized for the entire year. Like, I'm going to keep a couple of these things. Like Frankie Louvu, you think Frankie Louvu wouldn't have liked to have been one of the chess pieces for Mike Macdonald? That's my only response to the which coach could get more out of it.
Well, and one counter to that, sorry, Bryson, one counter to that is, how well was Denver playing when Evero was there? They had pieces. This wasn't bottom of the defensively like Carolina is right now. Denver was one of the top defenses in the league with Evero there. So I'm just throwing it out there. It's not always on the coach. If you don't got the players, you don't got the players. And I wanted 100%. To bring this comment up because this is driving me nuts. And this is Chris Dillard says, it doesn't seem like he's adjusting. What did they do last year when they lost majority of their cornerback room? They brought in guys in that cornerback room, and I get it. Those numbers were skewed last year. But that quarterback room had it played very damn well down the stretch for a team that lost a lot last year. So I don't want to hear the adjusting because I think that's a crock of shit. I feel bottom of the so you can only do so much adjusting with low-level talent on that defensive side of the ball. So I'm gonna push back on that because I do think he did well last year with the circumstances at hand and what he had with the talent level. So you guys might disagree with that, but Bryson, go ahead. Sorry, that was driving me nuts a little bit.
No, yeah, I definitely do disagree with you. I think last season was last season, but this season he has shown that he is not willing to adjust. I think we talked about that with just J.C. Horn not shadowing, just continuing to see Jordan Fuller and Xavier Woods get abused and not making a change. Like I think there's time and time again this season where Evero has been rigid. Like we mentioned, like he's just stuck in his scheme and not making these changes that need to be made. And you don't have a nose tackle, and you're running a system that is predicated on that. And you're getting abused in the run game, and nothing's changing. You give up 149 rushing yards to Rico Dowdle, who is a top 50 running back in the NFL, and he's
that's false, dude. He's been one of the he has been one of the best backs the last 4 weeks. You haven't been watching him. I mean, the guy
you're missing the bit, man. He called him a top 15, and then he was a top 30, and now he's a top 50. He's just climbing down the ladder, man.
So yeah, you give up 149 rushing yards to a top 100 running back in the NFL. I think Mike Boone could have got 149 rushing yards versus this defense. So I'm just pulling your leg there, Curtis. But I think he has been kind of not willing to make adjustments this season. At least last season, I would agree with you. He made it work with the system or the players that he had in the system. But this season's a little different. And it's frustrating to see.
I wish a Panthers defender would have pulled Rico Dowdle's leg the way you're pulling Curtis's right now, because
I will say this. I gotta defend Evero a little bit more. How many teams do you see Carolina time and time again is starting guys they've signed off of other teams' practice squads in the last look at the last couple of weeks. How many times has Carolina signed a guy off some random team's practice squad to come in and start for this team? Like, that's where we're at with this talent on defense. That's the hand Dan Morgan dealt Evero this season, with them heavily investing in the offense. And I don't knock that, because what they did with the offensive line has been unbelievable. That unit has been special, except for last game. But the what they brought in for this defense this past season was not very good. I mean, you got rid of one of your best players in a trade, and then your best defensive player got hurt for the year. And I don't even want to go. I'm not going to go back to this, but this talent level on this defense is just, it's not great. It's not great. So I think they're really, if they get rid of Evero this offseason, I think it's because of the talent they had on this defense, and it wasn't because of the coach. And I'll lay on that sword. That's fine with me.
And
that's fair.
I would say one counterpoint. I don't want to go back and forth, but they brought in a lot of Evero guys this offseason. I think Ricky mentioned earlier. They brought in A'Shawn Robinson. They brought in Josie Jewell. They brought in Jordan Fuller. These are guys that were supposed to be high caliber players in the system.
And Josie Jewell's been playing well. You're the guy you love.
Josie Jewell absolutely has. I 100% agree
Jordan
with that.
Fuller hasn't. Nick Scott hasn't. I agree with that.
Yeah, Jordan Fuller and Nick Scott have been putrid.
Dane Jackson, though, was a Dan Morgan guy. That wasn't an Evero guy. That was a Dan Morgan choice.
That was a bad signing, 100%. And A'Shawn Robinson's been playing pretty well, I think, too, for his age and situation, I guess. But yeah, losing Derek Brown sucks.
And that was an Evero guy.
Yeah,
and that was an.
I think the only way for you two to solve this is to go out into the parking lot and ring each other's Salvation Army bells until you get to a conclusion.
Listen, there's nothing I would like more than Evero to be successful in Carolina, because I was with Curtis, and I still believe he's a good coach, but it's just like when you see what's happening on the field and there's no adjustments being made in game, it's just frustrating. Hopefully he changes it and we're successful with him and he stays around, but I'm just not hopeful at this point.
And that's fair. I mean, I get the other side. That's why I struggle with it. Because there are things that you guys have brought up that drive me nuts too. I mean, I'm like, J.C. Horn should be shadowing someone.
With Evero, it's just really tough, man, because you look at like the efficiency metrics, like, and I know everything is not statistics, right? but literally from a defensive standpoint, when you're the second worst EPA per pass, second worst EPA per rush, second worst overall EPA per play, worst quarterback pressure percentage, and you allow the worst rushing yards per game, 30 yards more than the next worst, 30 yards more than the 31st ranked, like you have an overall failure on defense. And now I'm not saying that Evero is incompetent. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but there has to be an answer. And a lot of times, man, that answer happens to be the coach.
Let's move to another hotly debated topic here. We're going right from one to the next, and we're switching sides here. And that's on Xavier Legette. That's the guy that I was thinking of. He was placed on IR. He's out for the rest of the year. Right? Am I fair to say that? Is that?
I haven't seen that. Did I miss that? I did not see that.
Okay, I thought, well, maybe
he was at practice. He was at practice without a helmet. I know that he's not.
Don't listen to me. Well, anyway, he's dealing with an injury. Sorry, he's dealing with an injury. I'm mistaken. We were out, for folks that don't know, we were trying to figure out if there was a third guy on IR, and I for some reason thought maybe he was out. But let's go to the Xavier Legette question. I'm sorry. I don't want to confuse people. He's not out for the year, but he does have what's the injury? A quad?
Trevin,
right?
Yeah. Kevin Ketchy here is right. Trevin Wallace and Claudin Cherlis were the ones that were placed on IR.
And we'll talk about those. We'll talk about those guys in a minute. But Legette's got is it a quad injury? Is that what it is?
Groin, I think.
Groin. Yeah, they called it groin.
It's groin injury. And then he's got a wrist injury. They've kind of talked about it a little bit. Sounds like he might do something in the offseason with that. But let's talk about just his overall season. He's obviously out this week. He missed this past game. And I saw this question. I don't know who put this out on Twitter, but I thought it was an interesting one. Has Xavier Legette's season been a disappointment in your eyes? Who wants to start?
Who do you want to start? You just tell me because I'm ready. If any of you
want
to go,
Ricky, go ahead. You're ready. Ricky's ready.
Yeah, it was a disappointment, and that's not saying that I think that he's going to be a bad player. But if you tell me that this was not a disappointment for a guy who, before the season, we talked about it and we gave predictions, right? And one of the things that I said in my prediction for Xavier Legette is that if he were to see more opportunities, I said if the Deontay Johnson thing doesn't work out, if Adam Thielen gets hurt or gets traded, I said, and Xavier Legette ends up as your de facto number one, whether he's ready or not, if he is getting the lion's share of targets, if he is your target leader for your team for that season, and if your quarterback and your coach progress the way that they're supposed to, then Xavier Legette should have been a heavily involved, moderately to highly productive wide receiver this season, in my opinion. He has the physical abilities, and as a target monster, he should be able to capitalize with those abilities. He did lead. He is leading the team in targets. He's got 70 targets, 41 receptions. That's in 14 games, and 11 of those are starts. He's had a lot of opportunities. That has amassed to 439 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. The 4 touchdowns are his saving grace. I'm going to tell you that right now. If Xavier Legette had 2 touchdowns, we would be sitting here saying, man, like he's 2 touchdowns better than Jonathan Mingo is basically how we would be talking about Xavier Legette right now. Now, the nuance part of this is that when you watch him play and you watch the things he does, even on plays where he is not targeted, even on plays where he is not, the main target in a concept, he can run routes a lot better than I thought that he was going to be able to run routes. He has tempo differential. He can stem on his releases really nicely. He understands leverage. He can get to the ball. His drops are killer. They are absolutely crucial, and they are a mental and physical issue, I think, right now, both together. He's got a 58.6% catch rate. That's not good. That's a negative 0.6 catch rate over expectation. For reference, Adam Thielen is plus 8.5. Coker is plus 8. JT Sanders is plus 5.5. Miles Sanders is plus 3.9. Like, these are just catches that people are supposed to make and doing their job and their efficiency at what they're doing when they're targeted. And those are all guys with over 25 targets. He's got 102 yards after catch. For a guy who should have been working intermediates on vertical routes and getting into the middle and finding space. 102 yards after catch. That's 6 on the team, despite having the most routes run and targets. It's unacceptable. I think that is a disappointing year. You can place some of that on the quarterback. You can place some of that on the offensive scheme. He also has 1.3 yards per route run. That is damn near bottom of the rookie wide receivers. Damn near bottom. There's one guy worse, and I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to see Curtis smile. I'm not going to give you the benefit of that doubt to smile and clown me or the guy that I was very high on. Yeah, go ahead and say it. Whatever.
Jalen Bum.
Look, when you and Ajiro Evero are sitting at the bar together having beers next season, and Jalen Polk is racking up the yardage,
that would be fantastic.
I know you would love that. Now, I will say though, again, man, because I did kind of caveat that just a little bit, right? Is that Xavier Legette is not solely to blame for being misutilized, having inconsistent quarterback play. And that's not just Bryce, that's Andy Dalton. That's all of it. There's the funneling to Deontay Johnson that we saw for that stretch of Andy Dalton. There is context. But I'm just going to give you all my honest truth, man, when it comes to evaluating this team any longer. I am really tired of always having to attach not just a sticky note of context. Like, we're not just writing little like quick post-it notes of context on people and the way that they play it, this team. We're having to like attach like an SOP manual to every single player. Like, before we can say if we have a good player or if this player played well or if this player has what it takes, we have to read an 18-page like just breakdown on why his shittiness isn't the same shittiness as a shitty player. That sucks, dude. Like, I can't be the only Panther fan that is so like exhausted from having to do that, even with guys that I believe in. I like Xavier Legette. I like Bryce Young. I like Jonathan Brooks, who's injured. It's an injury. It's not even something that he did wrong. I am so tired of having to defend everybody with caveats instead of being able to defend them with bona fide production, with bona fide results, and with looking like a winner in the NFL. So did he have a disappointing season? Yes, sir, he did. Can he bounce back and be a really good player for the Carolina Panthers? In theory, yes, sir, he can. Will he? Hey, we'll find out. But I just opened my second beer, so I'm going to enjoy that. Bryson, what you got, man?
Yeah, but before I go, let's bring up Panther Bo here. $5, no comment, just right under it. Merry Christmas. So Merry Christmas to you,
Merry Christmas, Panther
we
Bo.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Hey, did you guys see Panther Bo's
he's in
tweet
Texas, right?
Did y'all see? Yeah, he's in Texas. Did you see his tweet made TNT the other night?
Yeah.
What was it, Panther Bo? You gotta remind what the tweet was. It was something on the golf tournament that was happening on TNT, and he pulled up a tweet that was like the Dumb and Dumber guys when they were frozen on the fucking moped, and he was like, "This is gonna be those guys after this round of golf" or something like that, and it ended up on the TNT broadcast, man. So cheers to the local celebrity, Panther Bo.
Yeah, man.
I love that.
Cheers, dude. Yeah. So on Xavier Legette, I believe week 8, week 9, I was on the show saying he's exceeded my expectations to that point of the season, and he's slightly fallen off a cliff from that point that I said that. Dropped a lot of balls, injuries, whatever the case is. This is a guy they traded up into the first round to select. We all knew how in love they were with him. A 6'3", 227 wide receiver that could run a 4.3. This is a guy that should be a dynamic weapon on this team. And I don't know if it's the coaching staff not believing in him, the coaching staff being too dumb to put him in situations to get him going like a downhill runner, put him in open space and see what he does. He did it at South Carolina. He's not doing it on the Carolina Panthers. I agree with Ricky. I mean, it's been disappointing to this point. I don't know where the blame goes. I don't know if it's on Xavier Legette. I don't know if it's on the coaching staff. I don't know if it's on the quarterback play. Like, maybe it's all three combined to one, and it's just not worked out to this point to the level that we thought it could. I still believe that he can be a good player. I think if he gets this wrist injury taken care of this offseason, puts work in the offseason, gets a full training camp with Bryce Young again, I think he has the ability, the physical ability to be a very good wide receiver in this league, but this season he just hasn't been. And like I said, I don't know where the blame lies, but it's been disappointing, absolutely.
And Bryson, if we're sitting here trying to figure out where the blame lies, right? Doesn't that mean though that one of those three things, whether it's quarterback, the wide receiver that we just drafted in the first round, or the coaching, one of those things is not functioning to a competent and good level.
Yeah.
Like it's just not. And it could be more than one of those things, but bare minimum, one of those things is not it. And that's what worries me the most, man, to be completely honest, because we try to find silver linings with Bryce. We try to find silver linings with Xavier Legette. We even try to find silver linings with Dave Canales. And at some point, man, I feel like we're coming to this reckoning where the silver linings are going to start to dim, right? What more appropriate saying is there in the world for right now in this situation than if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. Because guess what, man? We're doing a whole lot of ifing and butting, and it ain't getting us very far, man.
Yeah, wholeheartedly, man. That's so true.
I'll say this about Legette. I think the biggest thing for me has been his availability and the drops, like you guys kind of mentioned. I remember when we did our show, I think it was the week before the season started when we had everyone on, JJ, Edgar, Kevin. We predicted the stats, and little teaser, we're going to be having them on in a couple of weeks. So that, but I remember posing to you guys, and I got looks. I remember it, and people had commented too of, are you guys at all concerned with Xavier Legette? And I remember going back and I listened to some of that, and I did have a bit of concern, and I might have gotten thought of as crazy at the time, but I mean, this guy was battling injuries in training camp and his availability and missing mini camp, and the guy's running 20 miles an hour at Debo Samuel on the treadmill. And like, is this like, what's going on here? And then you see this trend throughout the season with his availability. And then this wrist injury just keeps coming up every time he's got a drop. I feel like it just kept getting mentioned as the drops kept increasing these past couple weeks. And then obviously the injury now with the growing. So where he's at statistically, he's kind of where I thought he would be just based off of what I was predicting. But the drops it's been brutal. It has sucked for me because I didn't expect that from him. And they've been in some pretty key moments and have taken away touchdowns and crucial points in games. So that I think that's the biggest thing for me. And I do give him, some slack because he was thrown in very different roles. Obviously Deontay Johnson was the featured guy the first several weeks of the season, and then they trade Deontay Johnson, and now Xavier Legette has taken on the X role. And I think that has overwhelmed him in his transformation as a rookie. And honestly, I think in the long run is going to be beneficial because he's been put in these different spots. And I do think that's going to be beneficial for a lot of these rookies, to be totally honest with you. Trevin Wallace, Smith Wade, JT Sanders, and but for right now, you're seeing the struggles from a lot of those guys. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Legette. I'm not giving up on him. I know that's been a question. Like, are you totally? I think it's way too early. We gave Mingo some grace even this year going in, and obviously that didn't pan out. But I do think Ricky, I thought you brought up a good point. I think the touchdowns have been key for him. Like, he's got very similar numbers to Jonathan Mingo. I pulled them up here. Mingo had 418 yards last year, no touchdowns. Legette's got 439 yards and 4 touchdowns. Very similar numbers. 41 catches for Legette, 33 for Mingo. So it's very comparable. But I do think if this is where you get in trouble looking at box scores and box score stats.
Absolutely.
If you look at both of their games, they're totally different. Xavier Legette has made some very special plays this year. Jonathan Mingo last year, he had maybe one or two, but none of them out of those couple popped out to you. Legette has made some special plays this year. So I do think that's where people do get in trouble. Like anyone outside of a Panthers fan is looking at us like, oh, yeah, Mingo's the same damn player. No. They're two totally different guys. So I don't think that's fair. I was just wanting to show you statistically wise the comparison. But I do think there's a bright future for Xavier Legette on this team. I do. I'm not giving up on him. I know that was a question posed this week on Twitter, and I don't think that's fair at all because I do think overall he's played well for his availability, but those drops do concern me. I hope he can clean that up because that really wasn't an issue in college. So that's probably my biggest gripe on his season so far.
Not out on him at all, but disappointing, absolutely. And I hope to see a bounce back because at some point the grace does run out. And I'm not saying that he's at that point, but you got to produce. And that's just what it is in the NFL.
Well, I think this is a good point to take a break. We will be back here shortly. We got a lot to talk about. We got injuries to discuss, and we'll start with that after the break. Then we'll get into statistically speaking. We'll do our bets and then predictions as well. So stand by for that. We'll be back in 30 seconds. These guys will be sprinting either to the bathroom or to go get a beer. We'll see what happens, but stay tuned. We'll be back
Risky
here.
time, baby.
Exciting news, Panther fans. I'm thrilled to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join sportsbooks in your area to get the best odds and new user offers. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/Panthers to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. If you're ready to take sports betting to the next level and show some love to Panthers on Tap, I highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. All right, we're back. Ricky is still working on that shot of whiskey for you guys, so stand by for that. But who requested the shot of whiskey? Oh, here we go.
It was Panther Bo.
Well, it was Ricky that posed it.
Okay. Yeah.
But if we shot of whiskey, I would like maybe a super chat. Can we get? Well, Panthers Bo did his super chat. We'll count
Panther
that.
Bo did it, and so that's what I was thinking too. Is that Bo already did that, right?
All right,
Curtis,
Ricky, what do you got?
I have this shot glass.
Oh,
which is
dude.
the Fragile shot glass.
Wow.
I have a full size leg lamp in our house. It's up in like a skylight, so the whole entire neighborhood can see it. It's splendid. But yeah, what do you got there? What is that?
The whiskey that I have is my Wathens Barrel Proof. This is the store picked, very good, 116.5 proof Kentucky straight bourbon. They named this Unicorn Tears because they thought it tasted so good, how it could have such a high ABV and proof. But this is a sweet bourbon. Wow. One of my favorite things is this is barrel number 115 out of 125 ever done. This is bottle 128 out of 204 ever done. So this is a very nice little Christmas bourbon. So I will take this in my Fragile shot glass, and you guys keep on going while I get this set up.
Wow.
Fragile. It must be Italian. I love that movie. It's great. Let's talk for a minute about the injuries. 2 guys on IR. If you were listening before, I apologize. Bella's not on IR. I don't know why I put that out in the world because that might bite me in the ass. But 2 guys on IR this week, Trevin Wallace, and I swear I had this name up here. I wrote
Auden
it down.
Sherless.
Thank you, Sherless.
Oh.
Let's talk about Trevin Wallace for a minute, because that's another guy, a draft pick who some at the time, some analysts said was a reach for Carolina. I guess it's kind of the same question. What have you guys thought about his season with him being out the rest of the year and how he's fared? And are you at all, I don't know if second guessing is the right word, but kind of second guessing that pick from what he has done this season?
I don't think I'm at the point of second guessing. I think he showed a bit of promise at that position. The Carolina Panthers have had terrible luck at the linebacker position this season, losing Shaq, losing Trevin, losing Claudus. Josie Jewell was out for some time at that position as well. It's just, I think it's unfortunate. I do think Trevin Wallace has the ability to be a good player in this league. I think he's got the physical traits. He's got to work on the mental aspect of the game and not biting on certain plays. And, that comes with a rookie linebacker, and he was overdrafted, I believe, by the Carolina Panthers, but he's got a level of talent to him, and he plays fast. He plays hard. You just got to get everything together at once. And I think he has the ability to be a good linebacker in this league and a potential starter for Carolina, maybe to take over for Shaq. Moving forward, I think he's got it. So no, I'm not second guessing the pick right now at this point. You could argue with Jonathan Brooks, like, okay, like second round running back, a coach that doesn't run the ball, he's out for season after a second ACL tear. Like, are you second guessing that pick? Like, I'm not even second guessing that one because I like Jonathan Brooks and I think he's an elite running back. And when he gets back, he's going to be a much higher level player than Rico Dowdle, who's like a top 150 running back in the NFL. I think Jonathan Brooks can be top 20. So just a different level than that kind of running back. So I'm not second guessing at this point. No, it's just unfortunate. Carolina has had a season of bad luck, and it continues to roll downhill.
Ricky, I want to pose it a different way here for a second, and I dovetail off of Bryson quickly here. Is I do think Trevin got thrown into the mix way too early, and that was not their plan. They obviously thought Josie Jewell, Shaq Thompson coming back from injury, they were going to play the whole season. Trevin, I think their plan with him this season was just to mix him in sub packages. Obviously, that got pushed up once Shaq went down. So that's kind of where I defend him a little bit there. But Ricky, are you at all concerned at the guys that Dan Morgan drafted in the injury prone of them? You had Bryson brought up Jonathan Brooks, torn ACL, non-contact injury again. They knew his injury was serious off of last year. You have Leggett, who's battled injuries this season. And now you have your third round pick, Trevin Wallace, who's out now the rest of the year. Is there any concern? And Crumedy, let's talk about Crumedy. I know he's a 6th-round guy, but he's been out for much of the year. So you have, 4 out of the 6 or 7 picks you had dealing with pretty serious injuries throughout the year at some point. Is that just the way the NFL works, or are you at all kind of wishing Dan went in a different direction with some of these picks?
You know how I read this one, Curtis, is first draft for Dan Morgan as the general manager, right? And he had the opportunity to draft a big, strong, fast, physical specimen at wide receiver who, he had some injuries in his college career, different injuries. So you can't even really necessarily say injury prone. Some, the motorcycle thing was even an off-field incident. But then you look at Jonathan Brooks, you had an opportunity to draft the best running back in the draft that would have been drafted before your selection if he hadn't have dealt with the injury. And then you have, some of this other stuff where Trevor Wallace, man, this injury that he has now, I don't know how you could foresee that. Like he didn't seem to have many issues with that in college. Jaden Crumedy. What I think when I see this, though, I see a GM who was not timid about betting on a guy's talent and physicality and ignoring the possible skittishness or red flags of injuries because it was his first draft and he wanted to make splashes and he wanted to draft difference makers. He wanted to draft aliens, if you will, right? Like the guys that show up on the field because they're physically better than the other players that are on the field. They're bigger, faster, and stronger. I think he wanted to do that because I think that this roster lacked that. Now, what I think he's going to find out as a GM, and maybe his approach changes a little bit, production at the college level absolutely matters. Sustained production. There is a strong correlation between players who produce at a high level and who get high usage in their college careers. There is a strong correlation between them having positive careers in the NFL. Not guaranteeing you that they're number ones at their position, but they're contributors for their NFL teams. What this Panthers team has to stop doing is drafting guys that are not on the roster within 3 years. That's the bottom line of it. If you can't draft players that stick and contribute for more than one silver lining reaching season, for more than two, but he played with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, he's supposed to be good seasons, right? Like, at some point, dude, you got to start drafting some of these guys that it's like he played for a little bit of a smaller competition and he's a little bit older. He doesn't have the best measurables. He doesn't have the greatest 40, doesn't have the biggest vertical. But guess what? He put up 1,400 yards every year at BYU for 3 years straight. Like, those are the kinds of things that I think you start looking at and saying, that's who I want on my team. I want a guy that can play. As far as the injury concerns that I have, or Trevin Wallace, the original question with Trevin Wallace, right? My issue that I have with him, man, is that I'm seeing a lot of the things that you saw on tape at Kentucky. The mental processing part has to catch up to his physical speed. This is a really fast dude. And in a read and react responsibility, which is what they want him to do, he doesn't see things as quickly as his body moves. And that was the case at Kentucky as well.
He bites.
Where I think they can really help too is getting him more involved in an attacking way as far as pass rush. I'm not saying necessarily like generate him as the rusher, but give him some cues, man, that like, if you don't see this and this is your responsibility, I want you getting after that quarterback, because he also was relatively productive in that manner at Kentucky as well. He is a physical guy. He is a thumper. He's got a great mentality, but the mental aspect of the game and the speed of the NFL, being able to process, get to the right fit, get to the right angle, and read a play for what it is instead of being tricked. It's a difficult thing, man. And he was thrown in. You guys are spot on, in my opinion, on being thrown into a responsibility that he was not designated for this year. Having that green dot on his helmet was not in their plans. I can almost guarantee that. Without confirming that, I can almost guarantee you that was not in their plans. So does he have an opportunity to naturally regress back into his development? I know that sounds crazy to phrase it that way, but he can regress back into his organic development of being the secondary linebacker, not being the guy. And that's where he needs to be for right now. I'm not out on him. I'm not out on any of those guys that he drafted, but Dan Morgan is looking at Xavier Legette, who is in a time to prove it season. Jonathan Brooks probably is going to miss the season. Trevin Wallace, there's going to be some progression needing to see. JT Sanders, I thought was good, but he's going to have to take a step. Like, you're in everyone has to take a step mode now because nobody took the step initially. That's the only issue you run into with everyone performing at, I'm not mad at it levels, right? Is that you also want more from every single one of them. So now, if you don't get more, the question starts being a really big one about, are they ever going to give you more?
All right, I want to ask you guys this. I didn't prep you guys on this one, but it popped in my head, and I don't think we talk about this unit enough, and that's special teams, and this has nothing to do with Eddie. What have your guys' thoughts been on Johnny Hekker this season? I want just a brutal answer on what you've seen in him in the punt game specifically. They did some different things this past week. Hekker kicked. He did the kickoffs, which was something different that they've been trying. And honestly, I wasn't mad at it.
To do with Eddie Pinheiro.
And honestly, I didn't mind that out of Johnny because he had some very interesting where they were coming in on line drive. Like, it was some crazy shit he was doing. And I enjoyed that out of it because it wasn't something you expected. And Eddie had some bad kicks on kickoffs that put them at the 40-yard line. But I'm specifically talking about punts because I feel a certain type of way about Hekker this year with punts. So, I kind of want to see where your guys' head are at with him in the punting game. Bryson,
Not been good enough.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, not been good enough. a common theme throughout this whole entire team. I think last season you could tell he was kind of falling off a little bit, and this season he's just not been good enough. And then he loves to get involved in like tackling and trying to lay the wood and like unsportsmanlike conducts like during.
See, I like that out of him, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but when you're, I don't know how old he is, 35 years old or whatever his age is, and you don't have a backup punter on the team, Pinheiro can barely kick field goals, which is his main job. He's not going to be able to get out there and punt the ball. I think having a punter that can flip field position is such a weapon and an underappreciated weapon for a team to have. And Hecker is routinely making 30, 35, 40-yard punts. And you got guys across the league that are doing 50, 55, 60. Like that's a game changer, especially for an offense that if they're struggling, like in your defense is struggling to get stops, like you need that aspect of the game. And Hecker's been struggling, man. I like him as a person. I like him on my team, like his personality, but the play on the field at his position just hasn't been good enough to this point.
Ricky, are you a fan of Hecker punting? You think they need to go look somewhere else this offseason? Where are you at with him?
I like Johnny Hecker, and I don't think that his performance has been up to his standards. He would probably be the first to tell you that. I think that he's had much better years. I don't know if it's a dwindling type of performance that you can expect going forward. I honestly don't know, man. I'll be candid about this one. I have a really tough time evaluating punters and kickers and things of that nature because it's not something I'm very familiar with, man. I've never punted. I've never kicked. Like it's just not, I don't know what makes the most talented version of it. I know that so much of it is mental. And one thing that I love about Johnny Hecker is his mental fortitude. The best thing I could say about Johnny Hecker is that I saw him start fights so far this year. And he's one of only about 3 Panthers that I've seen start fights, and not at the stupid boneheaded opportunistic times either, though. I'm not talking about like after a touchdown when you get a flag for an unsportsmanlike, when you give the opposing team the ball at the 50 instead of the 35 and you kill your team. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when he goes and he makes a play on the sideline and he starts getting bullied by a bunch of the big dudes because they're like, man, this is a punter. But that punter's 6'4", 235 pounds. Like, he don't look like a punter when you're standing eye to eye with him. And Johnny Hecker, he don't act like a punter when you're standing eye to eye. So I like Johnny Hecker. I'll give him a pass on the rough year. If we're going to give a pass to everybody else, Johnny Hecker, you got one more in you. I trust you, man. What I will say about the special teams is that I don't like Eddie Pinheiro. I don't care if you told me not to make this about Eddie Pinheiro or not. I don't like Eddie Pinheiro. And you said that Johnny Hecker was doing the kickoffs, and you told me this wasn't about Eddie Pinheiro, this segment, and that's about Eddie Pinheiro, and it's because he can't do it. So we got somebody else trying to do his job because he can't do it. God damn it.
I just wanted to bring up Hecker because I feel like not enough fans talk about him.
No,
and it's like he's the all-decade punter. We all put our eggs in a basket on that when he was with LA. And I get it. I do like him. I disagree with Bryce a little bit. I like his little dog in him he's got in the punting game because I don't think he's gotten, at least this past week, he didn't get a penalty. I don't know if he's gotten one before, but I don't mind that out of a punter. I kind of appreciate that, especially on special teams, out of a guy, because most of the time those guys are like, they don't want to be hit at all. I mean, they're running away from it. So I do appreciate that aspect. But I was like, after this past week, there was a couple of kicks where I'm like, why are we still riding this guy's coattails? So I looked it up and I was just curious, and he is bottom of the league when it comes to punts inside the 20. He's got 18 this year. The top guy's got 36. That's double that. He's kind of middle of the road when you look at like his punt average. And I feel like those are kind of like the two like barometers for that position. But even when he kicks it inside the 20, it's at like the 15. Like I want punts inside the 10, the 5, like put pressure on some of the, and I feel like that would, I don't have a lot of faith in the defense, and they'd probably still march it 95 yards down the field on Carolina. But like, I feel like that would at least help them a little bit. And I don't know. I don't know if that's also a knock on the coverage team as well. But I don't know. I just feel like this year hasn't been his best, and I thought it was worth talking about because I don't think enough people talk about it. No, and I mean, I get it. People don't care as much about punters, but Bryson does bring up a good point. Like, it can be a game changer when you flip the field. It really can.
For sure.
And when you do have a solid defense that actually can hold their own, which I know Carolina doesn't more times than not, but there's things that can be advantageous for the offense. So I just
speaking of game changers, you guys seen this new weird thing they're doing in the NFL?
Let's get into statistics.
Have you seen the new weird thing they're doing though in this league nowadays? They're kicking field goals that are longer than 50 yards, and they're making it, man. It's crazy shit.
70-yarders.
Yep.
Can't believe it. Can't believe it,
stuff, man. And it's not just one kicker that's doing it. It's a fair amount of them, Bryson. There's a decent amount of these kickers that they trot them out there, man. They're past the 30-yard line, and they trot their little field goal kickers out there and like, hey, man, we believe in you. And guess what their kickers don't do? Can you believe this? I got one last part of this for you. You know what their kickers don't do? They don't do it. They don't even shrug. They go out there and use their legs, man. They're all legs, no shoulders.
Love it.
I'm sorry. I'm waiting for this graphics to load. I know we're trying to get this. I didn't load this up before, so that's my bad. We'll be getting this.
Curtis is on like a super lag tonight, so everyone's got to bear with him. While we wait for his 1998 CPU to load up the RAM necessary to get the slides up on the screen, chat, we posed a question earlier. Should Ricky's dumb Christmas ass take a shot? I'm going to pose it again, man. Should we do another one either during, before, or after, statistically speaking? Chime in, vote on it. If you're going to do one with me so that I don't feel like the only... I don't want to be like the drunk uncle at the party that's had 4 eggnogs to everybody's 1. And at the end of the night, like, I'm eating the dog food out of the bowl while everyone else is eating their tenderloin. Like, I don't want to be that guy, right? So you guys at least let me know if it's an acceptable, fine thing here. Point me in the right direction before Curtis has an absolute breakdown over there. Like, he's trying as hard as he's blowing in the cartridge, trying to get this computer to work.
No, it's in. But I will say this. It'll take a super chat for another shot and maybe a Christmas carol from Ricky.
Yeah. Go for it.
All right, let's get into statistically speaking here. Ricky and his Christmas graphics. I love it.
Yeah, as you can see, I went full blown with the Christmas this time. We got a couple of angry birds on the screen. I thought that was appropriate. So the Arizona Cardinals offense. This is the Cliff Kingsbury offense with Kyler Murray. 22.4 points per game. That is tied for 15th. 351.4 yards per game. I'm already saying 1.4. Listen to me. That's that 116 proof barking right back at you. 351.4 yards per game. That is 11th in the league. 209.9 passing yards per game, 21st. 141.5 rushing yards per game. That's good for 7th. And that's the surprising thing about this Cardinals offense. You would think with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, right? And then they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. You would think this was a pass-happy offense, right? They're not, man. This is a ground attack, and they are good at it. Plus 0.02 EPA per pass. That's tied for 12th. These, again, are efficiency metrics. 0.01 plus EPA rush. That is 3rd best in the league. They have 29 offensive touchdowns. That's tied for 19th. Now, tied for 19th is an important one because that is a number you're going to hear a lot later on in these segments. 53.9% of the time they throw the ball. That is 24th in the league. So like I just said, you think of like the air raid offense with Cliff Kingsbury. Man, he has done a relatively decent job of changing that stigma about what he does. Offensive keys to this game, 63 rushes of 10 plus yards. That is 3rd most in the NFL. Now, these stats are all about the ground game because this is what's very interesting to me. 2.05 yards before contact per attempt. That's 4th best. 59.7% of their rushes come outside the tackles. That is the 8th most in the NFL. So when we are watching this game on Sunday, keep an eye out for that. Watch the way that they attack the run. DJ Johnson has been relatively solid setting that edge and playing run defense. We know Jadeveon Clowney, if he's playing, we know that he is very good at it. If DJ Wanham is in there, I think that it leaves you a tiny bit of wanting. So that is going to be something critical to keep an eye on. Kyler Murray, 7.2 yards per carry. 5.8 expected yards per carry for 455 yards. That is fifth most among quarterbacks. That is only behind the likes of, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. We're talking about like the most dynamic, Jaden Daniels, the most dynamic running quarterbacks. Right. It's brutal, man. And one thing that we know about this Carolina defense, the discipline aspect of our defense is not it. So Kyler Murray, when he sees grass, he's going to take it. They have allowed 23 sacks, which is the fifth least, on 142 quarterback pressures. That is the seventh least. That's a 29.2 quarterback pressure percentage. That is seventh best. For a 5.1 sack rate, that is fourth best. So not only do they not allow a lot of pressures, they don't allow those pressures to finish. That is a tribute to Kyler Murray and his ability to evade. And that is a huge feather in the cap of this offensive line, because they have played much better, I think, than people anticipated them playing, to be honest.
So my biggest concern, and you touched on it here, and Kevin was mentioning putting JC on Marvin, but Kevin Ketchy, if you've listened, they don't shadow JC Horn with their best player. My biggest concern with this team is Kyler Murray, his legs, and trying to bottle him up. I thought they did an all right job somewhat with Daniel Jones, but Kyler Murray planet compared to that guy in his run ability. And then James Conner, the way he's been playing as of late. I mean, you got to expect that guy to get 100 plus at the minimum. And then we talk about a rising rookie and Marvin Harrison Jr., their tight end who really well, Trey McBride, who Kyler loves to throw to. So like they have guys that he can go after. But I want to bring this up because I saw this today, and Joe Person retweeted this a little bit ago. And Kyler was asked in a press conference today about the cold weather. It's going to be cold this weekend in Charlotte.
Real cold.
And Kyler said, I played in cold weather before. How cold is it supposed to be? And the reporter said 35 degrees. And Kyler didn't mix words here. He said shit. So the guys played in the South, played mostly in domes. So that could be a factor. We're praying. It's a massive factor for this offense, but they'll probably ground and pound and beat the shit out of Carolina anyway. But there is one hope. Like if there's one strand of hope, this right here gives me that.
But the other end of that too, though, is with the cold weather, and we've got the super chat from Bo. So Bryson, while you give your take on these offensive sides of what we just talked about, I'm going to pour my shot. But the other end of that too, those hits feel a whole lot harder in this cold weather. So James Conner, that's a big back, man. Like you're talking about 6 foot, 6'1", 225 pounds. Him coming downhill at you, that ain't something that you're going to want to accept with open arms in the 35-degree weather either. So I fully anticipate them leaning into that game plan as much as possible, and then probably using a little bit more play action than we've seen from them to try to take advantage of that and get one-on-one opportunities for guys like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride.
All right, and before I go, we'll go ahead and pull up Panther Bo here. He says he's going to use this $10 that he's given to us like buying around and keep up the great work. We appreciate it, Panther Bo. Ricky is pouring a shot. I got to try that whiskey, Ricky. You have piqued my interest. So when we do our get together at the end of the year,
Ricky, is that a half shot? Hold on, I want to see that at the top of that. I want to see that to the top.
No, it goes.
There's a gap
down
in
in the
there.
leg? It goes down into the
Tiny
leg.
gap. It's a lampshade, you fool. I can't put it all the way to the top. This is crazy business. This glass
I try to razz you every once in a while.
This glass is fragile. If I fill it up all the way to the top, it will break. I have to treat it like a lady, okay?
Italian.
Cheers, Panther Bo. I appreciate the super chat, man. And Merry
it,
Christmas and happy holidays.
Appreciate it, Panthers boy.
Or what did he say? Hallelujah. Holy shit. Where's the Tylenol?
So my takeaway is
Hold on. I need a Christmas carol out of Ricky. I think I promised that from the folks.
Okay.
You can't make these promises. I want the Christmas carol out of you. I'm the one who's drinking 116 proof. I need somebody
else.
Carol from Curtis.
That's a fair point.
You got the loose lips over there from that whiskey. Get singing.
I don't have a choice but to have loose lips right now, right? Like that's just kind of what's happening. All right, look, let me get my bearings straight. Let me think of words to a song, and then maybe when we get after the defensive segment, maybe I'll give you a little something.
Okay. All right. So
beautiful, Bryson. Continue on with your point.
Yeah, my takeaway for those stats is Kyler Murray has been my fantasy football quarterback this season in 2 leagues that I paid money to be in. In one league, I had a chance to win $1,000, and Kyler Murray scored me 10 points, and I lost by less than a point in my fantasy football playoffs. So seeing that they don't pass the ball at a very high amount doesn't surprise me at all, because he's not been scoring shit all season, and he's been letting me down. I in one league I started Jameis Winston over him, who got like negative 0.3 points because I was so worried about Kyler Murray. But this is a different story this week. We're going against our defense. I got a specific prediction that I'm going to give out when we do our predictions for this game in regards to Kyler Murray's rushing. I think James Conner is going to have a good day. This is an offense that I think can be potent in the pass game, can be potent in the run game. I think the defense is going to have their hands full. If they can't stop Cooper Rush and a top 300 back in Rico Dowdle, then they're going to have a hard time stopping James Conner and Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I agree. I think every time that we talk about the matchups between teams and the Panthers, there has to be this huge, let's remember it's against the Panthers, right? Yeah. It is a different thing. It's almost like when you sit there and you're talking about what kind of beer are you going to drink at the beach? I want a low ABV because I'm going to be doing it all day. You don't want to wear yourself out, right? It's a thing of attrition. You are going to be doing that same activity all day. Stick with it. It'll work eventually, right? This is the ground game against the Panthers is the 4.5% Pacifico sitting out on a beach. Yeah, man, it's the 4.5% yellow can sitting on a beautiful beach staring out into the ocean. You can just pound it all day, and eventually it gets you to where you want to go, and everyone else has no idea what's going on around you, right? That's what the ground game is against the Carolina Panthers. That's that Mele Kaliki Maka type of Christmas, if you will.
Carter, you're playing with fire. All right, let's go to the defense.
All right, let's look at the defense here. We got the Arizona Cardinals defense. This defense is interesting to me because they have highlights, they have moments, they have games where they're a relatively solid and attacking defense. Then they have other games where they are absolutely susceptible to just about everything. And I told you to keep in mind the 19th, tied for 19th, because that's almost exactly where everything falls for them on defense, is right in that ballpark. 21.9 points per game. That is 10th. That's their best mark right there. 338.4 yards per game allowed. That's 16th. 217 of those is for pass yards per game. That's 18th. 121.4 rushing yards per game. That's 18th. 6.4 passing yards per play. That's tied for 19th. 4.5 rushing yards per play. That's tied for 19th. 29 touchdowns allowed. Now that's tied for 6th. They do not allow a ton of touchdowns, which is pretty interesting because they're not super stout up front. Their rushing defense isn't terrific. It kind of means that they have a very similar approach in a way of whatever with that bend, don't break type of deal. But it'll be interesting to see what Carolina could do, because I think that this is a game where even if the score says differently, I want to see Canales stick to that ground game because I think that there are openings there against this team. 55.6% of the time opponents throw the ball against them. That's tied for 17th. I almost feel like I could have erased this entire graphic and just put tied 16th to 18th and just said that that's their defense. Because this is a very middle of the pack type of defense. Not bad, not stellar. They don't have exemplary players for the most part. Budda Baker is fantastic. Zay Collins has kind of turned in, or Zaven Collins has kind of turned into a little bit of a weapon. Kaiser White, the linebacker, LJ Collier, their defensive lineman. They have the rookie Max Melton that I liked a lot, the defensive back. They have Sean Murphy-Bunting, defensive back that's pretty solid. Garrett Williams out of Syracuse. They do have some players, but they're not household names, right? They're getting the most out of what they can get, but it still is about what you would expect. For the keys here, we look over there, and that's Budda Baker in that first picture. They've got 36 sacks. That is tied. That is 13th in the league. On 159 quarterback pressures, that's a 24th best mark. 31.2% quarterback pressure rate, that's 26th. 7.1% sack rate, that's 12th. So quarterback pressure-wise, they're not really making a whole lot of noise. Now, sacks and sack rate, though, they're finishing the job. These guys are finishing when they get to the quarterback. That's interesting to note because Bryce Young, for all of the progression that he's made, that's one of his key areas, in my opinion, is his ability to not take that sack and to avoid taking the sack and the critical, loss of yardage and down. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. All zeros across the board, 0.00 EPA per rush. That's tied for 25th, 3.33 yards after contact per attempt. That's tied for 29th. That was why I just said earlier, a couple minutes ago, that I want to see Canales do what he told us he was going to do from way back when we first met him, right? It's like that rom-com Christmas movie where you first bring the new fiance boyfriend over to meet the family. First impression is everything. Well, the first impression, he told me he was going to be stubborn with the run. I don't want to see you come Christmas Day throwing 60 attempts to the guys back in the backyard football game, right? Run the ball, stick with what you got, heavy personnel. I want to see a lot of 12 personnel. I want to see inside runs, attack that interior of that defensive line for the Cardinals. 24.2% of the time, blitz rate, that's 21st in the league. Bryce Young has been pretty good against the blitz and seeing pressure, so it'll be interesting to see what he does when he sees a little bit more of extra men in coverage. Plus 0.02 EPA per pass, that's tied for 24th. This is not a world beater defense. This is an opportunistic defense, and this is a defense that needs momentum. I think that if you can get out and you can kind of enforce your will, you can get these guys off of their mark. And that's exactly what I think Canales and company have to do on Sunday.
This is a great opportunity for the offensive line to have a bounce back game, for the running offense, the rushing offense to have a bounce back game, for Bryce Young to have a bounce back game. This is a great opportunity. This is an average defense. Ricky talked about the stats. They fall right in the middle on a lot of these. And this is a chance for the disappointment of last week to be a positive this weekend. So we'll see if that takes place. I agree with you, Ricky. They need to be, again, week in and week out, we talk about it, stubborn with the run, let Chuba work, and then play off of that and see what happens. This is not a world beater defense like you mentioned, Ricky. This is a defense that can be had, and we need our head coach to take advantage of that.
What Canales has to do,
I want
Bryson,
to mention this too,
is he has to imagine that he has, top 150 running back Rico Dowdle almost in his backfield, right? Like that's what he has to do when he's looking at this game. I know
still
that
won't run it, Ricky. He still won't run it.
Okay, well then let's just imagine if you do have top 175
I would have Barry
Rico
Sanders,
Dowdle,
and he's
right?
still won't fucking run. I mean, let's be real here. Christ. I want to mention two guys on defense though. That could be beneficial for the Panthers. You have both their linebackers who were injured this past week, and I think one's out with a concussion. I don't know the other one's injury, but they both didn't practice today, and both of their starters are at middle linebacker. So both of those guys out, you're talking about their third string at middle linebacker, which could be beneficial. I do want to shout out, though, Budda Baker is a special talent. I think he just got extended, I think either today or yesterday.
Yep.
Sean Murphy-Bunting, I think, is a pretty good damn player. Pieces on defense, but that linebacking group is one to watch because that could be something they try to take advantage of. Ricky mentioned Zaven Collins. He was limited today. I do think he ends up playing this Sunday. I think he's a damn good player. I just want to address this for a second here. As I don't know if this is Twan Don or is this JJ Hardy maybe? Bryce needs to go. I don't know who you are. Relax and talk sports. But
you need to relax. You need to relax, buddy. Jesus Christ.
Anything, Ricky? You got anything to say?
Well,
this?
I'm curious what Relax and Talk Sports. What is your thoughts on top 225 running back Rico Dowdle? Like, do you think that he is a difference maker? Like,
Oh man. Hey,
All right, the shots are
chat.
talking.
Chat.
did I?
I got something for the chat. If you want to see Ricky take a third shot, let us know. In the chat, we need to see Ricky take a third one. So if you're on board with that, let us know in the chat.
So listen, if you make me take a third shot, I will also show you, because I don't think I have yet. I will also show you the artwork on this barrel-aged sugar cookie can, because there was a huge controversy here in Charlotte a few years ago about these cans, and now they change it every year. But they had a bunch of inappropriate things, right, on the can, and people found out about it, and it was, oh God, what are you gonna do? Like, there's boobies and stuff on the can. Like, how are our kids going to drink the beer when there's titties on the beer, right? Like, but now, so they do like a really sneaky thing where they mix it into the pictures, and there is all kinds of inappropriate stuff on here. So if you guys want to see inappropriate, dirty things, and you want to see me take another shot out of that lamp glass with my stupid Christmas mustache, you send a super chat, and I will make all those dreams come true.
And it has to be at least $10. That's what we're setting limits to.
That's the price of my dignity, according to Curtis.
and Kevin has a great. I think this is wonderful. Can Ricky say the Pledge of Allegiance like Aunt Bethany? Maybe that is your Christmas carol before this.
Play ball.
All right, let's move on here to Ricky. I thought before we put this slide up, I thought this was fantastic work by you.
Thanks,
If you guys are tuning into this for the first time, and I've learned this obviously in the past couple of weeks, like Ricky loves Christmas. I mean, this guy,
love it.
He is no Grinch. I mean, he's like Cindy Lou Who out in Whoville, like ready to bring Bryson in to wear a Christmas shirt. That's what he was trying to do before. Like that was 100%. His goal. So
I'm still contemplating taking an Uber up to Raleigh tonight and putting some Christmas lights up in his house, or dressing him in Christmas pajamas when he's asleep, because I'm so annoyed that he doesn't have Christmas on here. So yeah, I'm very much a Christmas freak. You know, I got a 6-year-old, man. I want him to know the magic of Christmas. I still wait for my Santa presents, right?
All right, here it is. This is he's hard work.
All right, so Carolina Panthers, we've been doing one slide only for these guys when they do bad games, and this time I thought it was just appropriate to do the naughty and nice list. I'm not interested in giving too many accolades here, so let's get straight to the naughty side. This is you're going to have so many lumps of coal in your stocking when you wake up because of this left-hand side of this list. Safeties on CeeDee Lamb. That is not one of my 12 favorite things. I can promise you that right now. Not at all. Turning Rico Dowdle, who, by the way, is a top 275 back in the NFL, turning Rico Dowdle into Tony Dorsett was an absolute travesty. It was trash, and I think that we should rue the day that this Panthers team did it. I mean, we're talking about literally, I know there's only like 335 backs better than him, but still, it's ridiculous what we did. How about the quarterback turning the ball over 4 times? That's too many. I don't care how much I like Bryce Young. I don't care how much I support him. 4 turnovers in a game by the quarterback is simply too many. Keep it simple, right? It's that KISS little acronym. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't overthink it. This is what it is. Allowing teams to dictate. That was the main thing that got you on the naughty list. Now, Bryson, you said that you're a big Elf fan. This is like when Buddy found out his dad was on the naughty list and he screamed, "No!" This is what gets you to that level of the naughty list. Quit letting other teams.
You should have put that at the top.
I should have, but I wanted it to be the finish. I'm a finisher, man. I don't start strong. I finish strong. And I wanted this to be the thing. You cannot be an ultra confident leader of men and a big picture type of coach if you let other people tell you who you are. That is the honest to God truth to me. The fabric of who you are is your backbone. And you cannot have a fabric of your being if you don't have a backbone. Stand up, do the thing that you said you were going to do, believe in your team, believe in your players, believe in your preparation week by week, and give them the chance to come out there and play. Now, I do have one thing over on that right side underneath that green word that says nice, and that is our undrafted free agent, Jalen Coker. Kudos to him. All year, he has been probably our best wide receiver outside of Adam Thielen. He has definitely been our best rookie wide receiver. I think that the sky is the limit for this young man. I'm not anticipating him becoming our number one wide receiver. I'm not saying that he is going to be Puka Nacua. There are complete differences in the way that those two players play. But you know what Jalen Coker does? A lot of the right small things. And he's in the places he's supposed to be in. And it seems like his quarterback trusts him. Those are pretty critical points for a wide receiver to get to, especially as an undrafted free agent.
Well done, Ricky, on the graphic again.
Thanks,
just
man.
throwing it out there. Super chat for a third shot for Ricky. I just want to remind folks of that as we talk.
Y'all
here.
just want me to get drunk. Look at you.
But we kind of talked about all these topics already. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. This Dallas game was a step back. It was like 2 steps forward. I think I put that in the description. 1 step forward, 3 steps back, or something like that. And Carolina has, this is an opportunity this weekend, a December game. I get it. They're knocked out of the playoffs, but this is where these get, like, when you're actually a good competing, these are the games that matter. This is where you want to be playing at your best. And I hope we can see that. And I hope we see the bounce back this week from Bryce, because we've talked about it. I still don't think they're 100% sold. We got a guy on here that says Bryce needs to go. He's 4-22 as a Panther.
So has everybody else that's been on the Panthers team in that time. Should we just get rid of the entire fucking roster?
See you, JC. See you, Derek Brown.
Yeah, they're 4-22 as Panthers. Get the fuck off my team, Derek Brown. I don't care that you've been injured. 4-22, bro.
So, Bryson, thoughts on this slide here before we get into our bets?
Yeah, I love it. Of course, Ricky is getting me in the Christmas spirit. I can't believe I didn't wear a T-shirt. Or
just not enough to put a shirt on.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I made a grave mistake coming onto this episode, not in the Christmas spirit. But I love the holiday. We had a party at work. I was wearing a cowboy Christmas hat. We were decorating, cooking, everything like that. I slacked today, and I apologize to
He's not a total
listeners.
Scrooge, Ricky.
Yeah,
listen to him.
All our listeners and viewers. I love the holiday.
He's pleading his case. He sounds like Clark Griswold's boss when he's standing in front of the whole family, and he's like, you see the numbers on the spreadsheet, but you don't see the people, Clark.
Kiss my ass, kiss his ass, kiss her.
Kiss your ass. Happy Hanukkah.
Oh man. Before we get into bets, I do want I'm sorry, we're prolonging this, but hey, we're not going to be here next week, so why not have a longer episode?
Yeah, have yourself some cheer.
But we have to talk about, I wanted to talk about David Tepper's comments before we get into bets, because I feel like that was kind of a big thing that came. He had a holiday event. I think they were giving out gifts to children in need, which is awesome. You love to see that. They've done some great nonprofit work this year, both with Western North Carolina and then, what they do every year during the holidays. But he was asked about, it was Mike Hayes, so shout out to him from the Charlotte Observer. And I knew that was coming, Panthers Bowl. We'll get to it in a minute. But what he thought of the new brain trust with Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis, and Dave Canales. And basically, he said that they're going to be back next year, and he likes what they're building with this team, and that they're going to continue to build. And I know that took some people the wrong way as well. But what were you guys' thoughts on David Tepper and just him overall, I guess, through week 15 of this year and where he has been at this team? Ricky, do you want to start?
You're asking about Dave Canales right now, right?
David
I was
Tepper.
just making sure. David Tepper. Okay.
David Tepper.
I heard you talking. My thoughts about David Tepper are that I haven't had to talk about him much, and I appreciate that. I see you both laughing at me. Don't do that. Don't chastise me. I'm holding this thing together right now. Okay. I am on my last twine of Christmas lights, and I am keeping it strung together. I don't really care for David Tepper as an owner, but I will tell you this, man, what he did for the Western North Carolina region with getting that concert set up and all that stuff, it brought him some good fortune for me, to be completely honest, man. And I know that maybe that's not related to football at all, and maybe that's naive or silly of me to even like classify that together. But things are bigger than football for me. I love this game. I love talking about it. I love doing this show with two of my good friends every Wednesday night. Like, this is a fun thing for me, but life is way more important, man. And stepping up to the plate when life rings the bell, I love that. So I will give infinite amount of credit to Tepper for doing that, and the credit that he got from, you know, Luke Combs and everybody involved in that. I think that that's important to note. As for the football part of it, this seems like moves that were made by Dan Morgan and Brant Tillis and a vision of Dave Canales. I don't see a lot of the same patterns that I think we saw when we thought that David Tepper was highly involved. That's progress for me, man. We'll see how it goes next year, because I think it's easy to be patient when you've been impatient for 7 years. I think it's easy to be patient for one. What happens if you don't get results a second year? That's the real test for me, because that's where I think you could see that antsiness and that I'm smarter than everybody attitude creep back up into the public fold, and you could start seeing some panicky decisions being made. But as for this year, man, kudos to him. I appreciate what he did for North Carolina.
Yeah, he's taking a different
Bryson?
approach. He's being patient, and I think that's what this team deserves. I have never hated David Tepper to the level that some people do. I think he has his deficiencies in certain areas, and he is definitely too involved with his team, and I don't agree with that. But I've always said that David Tepper wants to win. I really believe that with his spending on coaching staffs and, just a blank check to do whatever needs to be done in regards to hopefully making a winning team. Now, does he need to take a step back? And there's been reports of it as well from the football operations side. Yeah, because he doesn't know football. And that takes a sense of pride to do that. And it sounds like hopefully he's doing that this season and going forward, but that's to be seen. I think he wants to win, and I think that we are going to win in Carolina at some point. The tides have to turn. Like, we're not going to be terrible forever. So whether that's under the ownership of David Tepper or not, I think it will happen eventually. And then to Ricky's point, yeah, that concert was amazing to help the people in Western North Carolina. Shout out to Luke Combs, shout out to David Tepper, all those people putting it together, raising so much money for them. And then David Tepper making a donation as well himself to the people of Western North Carolina. I think it was $3 million. So you can't do nothing but just appreciate that and the efforts that, this franchise and this owner made towards the people of Western North Carolina.
I will say this. David Tepper, we love your charitable work. Continue to stay away from football operations. And I will leave it at that. We all know where I stand with David Tepper. I want to go to Panther Bo here. We've been waiting long enough. $10. I couldn't see Ricky's incredible sales job. Hold on, Ricky, before you take that shot. He couldn't see that incredible sales job not get rewarded. Drink. As I try to figure this out. Look how red Ricky's face is.
Is it that red? Yeah, I mean, look, what are you gonna do, man? Like,
I got a
I'm going on 3 shots of 116 proof bourbon right now after having at least one 10% beer, a 7.5% beer, and I opened a third 10% beer. Like, I'm gonna sleep until Christmas. You understand that, right? Like, this is my last hurrah. But also shout out Bo, because I just saw on Twitter that he tagged us on a post in Twitter where he is also taking shots out of this same shot glass. So he is not just a man who asks somebody to do something. He is only asking you to do stuff that he will do himself. And that is a man of Christmas integrity, Bo. Cheers to you, my friend. Happy holidays. Here's to looking up your address. And that's Ricky, our show, ladies and gentlemen. Good for us.
No. Ricky, where did you get that Christmas hat?
This hat?
Yeah.
Oh, this is just a regular Santa hat, and then I have the Rebuild the Roar patch, and then I have a Charlotte Hornets pin on here. That's just my own little flair. You ever seen Office Space where he has Jennifer Aniston putting on all those fucking buttons? This is just my flair, man. You know, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little bit extra.
Where's my stapler?
All right, so let's go to our.
Got those TPS reports, Bryson?
Let's go to our bets for the week. I'm sad because Alex is not here to chime in. I'm sure he will see this later. But here's our bets for week 16. And why don't we go with Bryson to start here? Why Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Why Amon-Ra St. Brown? Okay, let's talk about it. Last week, I had Jerry Jeudy over, and Alex was questioning my over on that because of the type of defense the Chiefs ran. And I said, just believe, man, just believe. And he believed, and he won some money off of that. All three of us hit last week. So in regards to Amon-Ra, you know, he's coming off of a game, 18 targets and 193 yards and a touchdown versus Buffalo. And it was a shootout. You know, I'll give him that. But he played Chicago a couple weeks ago. He hit 73 yards, which is over the 69.5. Chicago has been terrible, and I know Curtis loves to hear that. They've been awful, and their defense has been bad. It's been worse since they let go of Eberflus, who was kind of holding that defense together. And under
Did
Thomas
anyone
Brown,
see Caleb Williams sulk on? I mean, if you haven't, you're sleeping under a rock.
Curtis almost hates the Bears more than he likes top 472 running back Rico Dowdle. You know what I mean?
Sorry, Bryson, go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. So I think this is a safe bet. He's hit it like the last 3 out of 5 weeks, and then the 2 weeks he didn't, he was very close. I think that the Lions are going to have their way versus this defense. Amon-Ra is an elite wide receiver in this league. You know, Jared Goff is playing at a high level. I think this is very attainable for him in this game, coming off the best game of his career. You know, last week versus Buffalo. I think they're going to continue to involve him at a high level. The Lions are playing for that number 1 seed. They've got some competition with the Eagles and, you know, kind of going back and forth with them. So I think the Lions are going to be motivated, and they're going to involve St. Brown at a high level.
Ricky, when Ricky sent this to us today, we were all disappointed. However, we understood the assignment. We understood why he did this. But go ahead, Ricky.
Look, here's the deal, man. I pour my heart and soul into this team every week for them to take a massive shit right on top of us every week. I swear it feels like that. For at least the last 7 years, it's felt like that, where no matter what, when I believe the most, right, it would almost be like my kid waking up on Christmas morning and literally coming out to one gift, and the gift was just a note that said, try harder, right? Like, that's what it feels like. Like the thing that you love the most is just telling you that, like, you're not there yet. Like, it grinds my gears. So what I do now, since we've done this whole parlay on tap thing, man, I want to make the people money. I want to make the people that watch this show, I want to make them happy. because you know who doesn't make them happy? Carolina Panthers. You know who can make them happy? Panthers on tap. We can be up here with our stupid little Christmas hats on, our stupid little Christmas shirts, or if you're Bryson, your regular shirts and your regular hats. But I'm not trying to point fingers or anything like that. I don't want to do that, right? I'm not that kind of person. The holidays are all about hate, right? James Conner, do I really have to give you more reason? If you didn't watch Statistically Speaking about 25 minutes ago, you should go back and watch Statistically Speaking. And it will tell you every single reason why I think James Conner easily cashes over 81.5. The only way that James Conner doesn't cash 81.5 is if they're up 28-0 at the half and they let Trey Benson or their third string running back, if they will, I think it's DJ Dallas possibly, if they let him come in and run the ball instead of James Conner because they don't want to get him hurt. But these Cardinals are fighting for playoff position. That's the thing too. These guys are playing to win this football game. They're playing for momentum because they have a matchup with the Seahawks, I believe, at the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken. They are trying to build momentum and get rolling. They want this game. They know this game is a catalyst. This game is a jump off. And against this rushing defense in the cold weather, when Kyler Murray was publicly out there on his press conference, as Curtis pointed out, when he was asked about how cold it was going to be, and his response was one of my favorite 4-letter words in the entire world. And he just said, shit. That lets me know right there, they're about to do a 3-letter word a whole lot on Sunday. And that's run. And James Conner is a bad man when he totes that rock. So give me James Conner to get 82 yards or more. I like that bet.
And I want to say this because I think it gets lost in the shuffle. Bryson talked about it. We hit last week, all three of us. That's money made. Go check Alex out on Twitter. He made over $500 off our parlay. So we're doing our damnedest to help you guys out. You don't always have to take all three of our bets. You can pick and choose which ones you like. We're just trying to help you guys out. If you do sports bet, we would appreciate if you take our parlay. Understand whatever you want to do with it. But I'm just telling you, Alex has made money off of some of the parlays we've had week to week. So just throwing it out there.
I want to throw it out there. I think that I'm on like a 4 or 5 bet heater as well. I had a small intermittent thing in the middle of the season, but I was crushing early and I've been on a heater later. So hey, look, if you're looking for an idiot to follow, the guy that drinks the most is the one that gambles the most too.
So I will say this. I was going to wait for Alex to put this out there, but I literally went back. It took a bit. I went back every single week to see where we're at with the standings. And I wait for Alex, but Ricky started yapping. So I'll give you the standings. So through 15 weeks, Bryson has hit on 7 of his bets. And Ricky and I are tied with 9. So he's not far behind. Bryson started low, and he's kind of roared back these last several weeks. But so we're all kind of close. It's 9-9 with me and Ricky, and then 7 with Bryson. The only week
we're not better.
The only week that all three of us haven't hit on at least one of them has been week 1. So we've hit on every single week at least from week 2 on. So it's pretty damn good odds. So a little competition between us three the last couple of weeks. I hope we hit on every single one, all three of us, the next couple of weeks. But I'll end with Cortland Sutton. He's playing a Chargers team that has kind of regressed in the secondary as of late. They're giving up 67, I think, completion percentage to opposing teams. Cam Ward is also projected to be out this week, one of their starting corners, which will be helpful. Sutton has gotten 8+ targets in the last 7 games, so he's a Bo Nix guy. He's also hit that 64.5 receiving yards over in 6 of the last 7 games. So pretty good odds for Sutton this week. The game is tomorrow. We'll put this out in the morning. So your parlay would start Thursday. It would end on Sunday. I don't know I'm not sure if I think the Lions game is a 4:30 game maybe. So that parlay would end in the second tier of the games on Sunday. So it's a pretty good one. Check it out. We would appreciate you use our designated link, signupexpert.com/Panthers. You go in there. It has all the sports books that are available in your area. So you don't have to go and download all the apps. You literally just click on that link, go to the sports book you want. Everyone's doing deals all the time. Go in there. 365, I think it's bet 5, get 150 in bonus bets right now. That's a pretty good deal. Even if you don't win your bet, you still get 150 in bonus bets to keep those bets alive. So take advantage of it. Use our designated link. We would appreciate it. But chat, you guys have not, and I apologize, I didn't let you guys give some time. So talking about our predictions, I'll let you guys chime in. Get a prediction for this game on Sunday, please. Let's see who you guys got. Cardinals, Panthers. Give us a score and the winner, and we would appreciate we'll mention here at the end. But let's go to that, guys. Ricky, you want to start us off? Or
yeah, sure. Why not?
Which one?
So looking at Sunday, if the weather outside is frightful, I hope that Bryce Young remembers that the fire is so delightful. And if there's no place to throw, just look for Jalen Coker and let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Right? You asked for a Christmas Carol. I gave you a quasi one when I talk about a game plan. But the main thing would be run the fucking football. That would be the main thing I say. I don't have a Christmas way to say that. Look, I think that this game comes down to the Panthers having to determine, do they have the pride inside to play this game with a whole lot of heart? Because I think you're going to get the best shot from the Arizona Cardinals. I genuinely believe that. I don't think that the Carolina Panthers are a solid enough football team right now to win this game. And I feel differently than I felt 3 weeks ago about this team. I don't really like choosing the side of a, for lack of a better term, bipolar football team. This team wakes up in the morning and decides who it is. They don't have an identity. Until this team knows exactly who they are and they play to that extent every single week, I can't pick them, man. Like, I hate to say that, but I can't do it. I think that Arizona still has stuff to play for. I think that they have more talent on their team. I think that if you can't shadow Marvin Harrison Jr., he's going to find some opportunistic looks that he hasn't seen in a lot of recent games. And a lot of people have been really critical about Marvin Harrison Jr. And I'm telling you what, man, he could have a game on Sunday against this Carolina Panthers team because of the fact of this scheme. I think Trey McBride has a really nice game, and I think James Conner has a good game. So I'm going to take this and say 27-20 Arizona Cardinals.
27-20, did you say?
I did. Yes, sir. Yeah. Sorry. You've been taking shots all night, right. But 27-20 is what I said.
27-20. Chat, let's see your predictions. Panthers both got one, but Bryson, go ahead.
If they had top 478 running back Rico Dowdle, I probably would have went a little bit higher.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it, Ricky. Listen, I couldn't agree more with relax and talk sports. NMO. Amen. Whatever that means. This game is not going to be won by the Carolina Panthers, unfortunately. I think Kyler Murray is going to have a good game. I'm out of the fantasy football playoffs, so it won't be any benefit to me, unfortunately. But I think James Conner is going for over 100. Ricky's bet is going to smash. It's going to be an easy bet. I think Kyler Murray gets 50-plus rushing yards in this game. We know the Carolina Panthers' defensive struggles versus running quarterbacks. They've done a decent job this season, but they haven't really been tested that much either. And when it really mattered, Patrick Mahomes ran for 30 yards and won the game. So I think the Cardinals win this game. I got them scoring 30. I got the Panthers putting up 21. The Cardinals, I think the line's at 4.5. I think that they cover and well over the cover, and they win by 7.
Hey, wait until you guys find out that this Relax and Talk Sports is really my burner account, and I'm over here trying to talk in the private chat. NMO, NMO. No more, no more.
So what was your score again, Bryson? So we had 27-20 with Ricky.
Oh my
What was
God.
yours?
Did you finish the whole bottle of wine? Did you do it?
No. No.
Is it just the lagging? Is the lagging messing you up? Something is happening. Either
Yeah.
you're lagging or you're
No,
dragging on the
you guys
wine.
are. No, you guys keep going in and out. What was your score?
30-21, Arizona Cardinals win.
Shit, I hope it ain't that. Man, I'm with Rick. I'm with Ricky. I just struggle. I haven't picked the Panthers much this season. You guys all know that. I picked them last week. Thought they'd win big, and they just laid a big old fat egg and embarrassed the hell out of my picks. So I'm not taking them the rest of the year. I think it's a long shot if they win another game, to be totally honest with you. Man, I think it's going to be lower scoring than most people think. I'll go 2017 Carolina. I do think they keep it closer than they did with Dallas, and that's kind of their punch back. I think Kevin was talking about that in the chat. How do they respond after getting punched in the mouth? So I do think they keep it closer, and I think maybe they'll make a late game to keep it close. But I think in the end, they're going to end up losing this one for all the reasons we talked about, is statistically speaking, which has been disappointing, really. No, I was distracted because I was looking up A Christmas Carol and trying to think of a fun
you were trying to match me, huh? You were trying to match. See,
I was trying to match you.
See, the problem is, man, you can't do this thing where you have to look it up. It has to be in you. That fire has to be burning within you. The best way to spread Christmas cheer is singing loud for all to hear. And if you believed it, you would have already known that. You know what I mean? And now Bryson knows exactly what I'm talking about. You're out there in like Times Square, something like that. Your little elf girlfriend that does all the stuff at Bloomingdale, she's out there with you. You know what I mean? Like, your new family that you just found out. Like, look, we all know the story. It's a classic story. We've all been through it in our lives, right?
I don't know. I'm not drunk enough to sing. I have a clever line, but
do it. Do it. Do it for the
I'll
people.
leave it there.
Do it for the people. Do it for the people.
Why? I got raked over the coals all day on the internet today because the Titans announced that they were benching Will Levis in favor for Mason Rudolph. And I said on top of the NFL account's tweet, and I said, so you might say that he's guiding the sleigh, Rudolph is. And I got so many people that were just like, what's your fucking problem, man? Like, why would you say that?
So here's my song. I'm not going to sing it, but I'll read it to you. It's beginning to look a lot like Wayne. Everywhere you go, take a look at the 1st and 10. It's running once again. What Chuba Hubbard, or I'll punch you in the nose. There you go. That's what you guys get.
I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. That is beautiful. Bryson, do you have anything that you want to try to redeem yourself with here, man? Because like you're the only one dressed in like anti-Christmas gear here. Like I feel like your name down there. This. Hold on. Shut up, Ricky. Keep going.
Jack Frost nipping at your nose.
Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up like Eskimos.
Oh man, we could keep going all night.
All
night.
I love it. But I was going to say though that Bryson should change his name down here, the little name tag. He should change that to Krampus since he's such an asshole.
I'm gonna start eating onions.
Oh man.
Later, Panther Bo. Appreciate you being on here and the super chats, brother.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. And thank you guys. We're going to take a week off next week for the holidays. So we do appreciate you guys tuning in. We tried to give you a little extra tonight. I think all of us sang at one point or attempted to. Ricky has taken several shots, if you can see by his face.
We'll be off next week to try to recover from whatever this was tonight.
But hopefully we get we actually get a competitive game this weekend. I will be there. Hopefully Bryson's there as well. We'll talk offline. But yeah, it should be a good one. And if you are going to the game, I'll be at the Roaring Riot tailgate. Say hi. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. And we can get a win at the bank this weekend. And Kyler Murray's being scared to play in the cold comes to fruition. And Panthers honestly have a pretty good record against Arizona. So let's hope for it, and hopefully we get a good game this weekend. But we do appreciate you guys. If we don't see you until then, happy holidays. Merry Christmas. We appreciate every single one of you, 450 plus listening at 11:38, almost midnight on Wednesday night. We appreciate you guys wholeheartedly. If you don't subscribe to our YouTube channel, please do. But until next time, we'll see you guys later. And as always, keep pounding.